Chapter 231. After the Arc de Triomphe in Northern Town City was completed, many workers and slaves were free. As a black-hearted capitalist and an evil slave owner, there was no way he would let his workers rest. The next day, he announced the construction plan for the city. The first thing he needed to do was to upgrade the granary. The granary in Northern Town was very simple and crude. After all, they did not have a lot of food. However, due to the harvest altar, the food production had skyrocketed. Northern Town's granary was now full. In order to preserve the food, some of the granaries were taken out for storage. However, they could only be stored temporarily. After all, potatoes were not easy to preserve. Without a professional granary, the potatoes would sprout easily. Potatoes were different from other crops. The sprouted potatoes were poisonous. Once they sprouted, they would be inedible. The granaries in North Town City were built underground. The space above ground only took up a third or even less. This kind of underground granary had a low internal temperature, which made it easier to preserve the food. Since it was located in the underground, even if a fire broke out, only the top layer of the food would be burned down. The food buried in the underground would be fine. Su Len attached great importance to the granaries. He specifically found an official from the basic level to be in charge of the granaries. He also set up a strict management and inspection system. He did not want a fire dragon to burn the granaries, or soldiers from the dead to borrow food, like in ancient times. The granaries in Northern Town were built in the northwest, close to the Red Sand River. The aqueduct was close, too. Once a fire broke out, it would be solved in the shortest time possible. A granary could store around 10 tons of food. Su Len planned to build 20 to 30 granaries. The food they stored would be enough to feed Northern Town for 3 years. These granaries were the reserve granaries. They would not be used under normal circumstances to prevent wars and other disasters. Apart from the strategic reserve granary, Northern Town also had a normal granary. This granary was used to provide food for Northern Town. As for the strategic reserve granary, it would not be used unless it was purchased at a low price. Even if the food became moldy after a long time, it would be sent to the winery to be brewed. With 1,000 craftsmen and even more slaves, the granaries in the North Town City were built very quickly. A standard granary had a diameter of 8 meters and a depth of 6 meters. The granary was located in a relatively high area in the North Town City. The ground was dry and hard, and there was a layer of bricks inside the granary. The bricks were covered with chaff and hay to prevent moisture. In order to build this granary, Su Luen had read a lot of information and asked those experienced craftsmen. Then he started the construction. After all the granaries were excavated, they were dried with firewood. The next step of construction was not started until there was no more moisture. The interior of the granary was paved with a layer of bricks. The sand from the Red Sand River was washed, dried, and placed into the granary. Together with the chaff and hay, the granary took 7 days from start to finish. When the last door was put in, the granary was considered complete. Excellent granary, indestructible plus 23, durability plus 24, fire plus 28, moisture resistance plus 26, insect and rat repellent plus 25, mildew reduction plus 25. As it turned out, Su Len's granary was quite good. All the granaries in the future were built according to this model. After establishing the standard, Su Luen asked the craftsmen to build according to this standard. Then he went to Hathaway's laboratory. The books and materials he got from the necromancer last time had been given to Hathaway, along with some potions he got from the necromancer. Today, Hathaway informed him that those potions had been identified. He went to Hathaway's lab. Now, Hathaway's lab was several times bigger than before. The functions inside were more complete. When Su Len came in, a clay golem opened the door for him. Hathaway's lab was no longer the same as before. There were 6 clay golems alone. These golems were in charge of all kinds of basic work in the lab. Sometimes, they would also help Hathaway with some dangerous experiments. Hathaway, have these potions been identified? Sulen looked at the various bottles on the test bench next to him and asked. These bottles were no different from when Sulen sent them. Yes. Hathaway nodded gently. She didn't raise her head. She was holding a carving knife in her hand and was carving a dragon skin armor. A mysterious runic array quickly formed in her hand. Then, Hathaway snapped her fingers. All kinds of materials that had been mixed flew out of the box next to her. These materials quickly fused under the control of magic. Then, as if they had a life of their own, they fused into the dragon skin armor that had been completely engraved with runes. The aura dissipated, and the runes shone brightly. Then, the brilliance faded, and the dragon skin armor returned to its previous ordinary appearance. Strong Gale Dragon Skin Armor +3, Indestructible +10, Light and Flexible +8, Spell Resistance +10, Acid Resistance +10, Spells, Haste, Bull Strength. Once a day. Additional effect, Deterrence, originated from the innate ability of dragons. Although your own creatures don't have a powerful dragon deterrence like a real dragon, their majesty is still a great deterrence to lower creatures. When the dragon skin armor was made, part of the Euron's deterrence effect was retained. There was a chance to scare away unsteady enemies. There was a chance to cause a deterrence test to the enemy during battle. The enemy would have to undergo a will test. Seeing this dragon skin armor, Su Luan was also a little surprised. Hathaway's skills were getting more and more exquisite. This dragon skin armor could be said to be the best among all the dragon skin armors she made. After putting away the tools, Hathaway picked up the black tea next to her and took a sip. Then she said, "The potions you got from the necromancer are not simple. I was shocked when I identified them." Really? Could it be that those potions can greatly increase one's strength after taking them? Sullen's eyes lit up. Hathaway rolled her eyes and looked at him as if he was an idiot. Do you think that necromancer would not use those potions himself and run around with them? Maybe his brain had a cramp. Sulen pursed his lips. Although he knew that the probability was very low, it didn't stop him from imagining it. Hathaway ignored him. Instead, she took out a piece of paper and said, "This is the identification result and how to use all the potions you brought back. Take a look yourself. I still have to study how to improve the rock golems." How to improve the rock golems? You should make one to practice first and then improve it. Sulen took the identification result and flipped through it. Manticore venom, venom collected from the venom sac in the manticore's body. Highly toxic. At the same time, it has the effects of paralysis, severe pain, and confusion. Corpse oil, fat extracted from corpses. Can be used to summon undead creatures to increase the success rate of summoning. Poisonous. Corpse poison potion made from a variety of poisons. It can be used to add poison attacks to the undead. It can also be smeared on weapons. Those infected by corpse poison will slowly die if they don't have a cure potion or a priest's divine spell to dispel the poison. Explosive potion, after use, it can cause an explosion with a diameter of 15 meters. The strength of the explosion is 30 degrees. The strength of the explosion of the fireball spell is 15 degrees. Corruption potion, after use, it will cause a corruption effect. If the constitution fails to resist, the body will rot in a short period of time. Petrification potion, a potion made from the heart of a petrifying lizard and other materials. After use, it will enter a petrified state. If the petrified state is not removed within 2 hours, it will completely turn into stone. Plague potion, after use, it will release a green plague. The plague will pollute water sources, kill trees and animals, and finally create a plague. People or other humanoid creatures infected by the plague will be resurrected as low-level undead. With enough plague potion, it can even transform an area into a plague zone. Sullen's heart couldn't help but twitch when he saw the plague potion. Sure enough, these undead wizards were terrorists. They even brought this kind of destructive weapon with them. If this thing was used in a densely populated city, it wouldn't take long for the whole city to become a ghost town if it wasn't discovered or dealt with in time. It was like a fantasy version of a biological weapon. After seeing the potion, Su Len also remembered who this undead wizard called Keaton was. This guy was the plague bane of the Aubrey's kingdom. The biggest thing he did was to use this plague potion to destroy a small city. This potion was Keaton's secret recipe. It was also because of this potion that Keaton became famous. There were more than 20,000 people in that small city. This was the most outrageous thing that an undead wizard had done in the past 200 years. Later on, this guy even wanted to create an undead calamity. However, he didn't think about it. With the suppression of the gods, those who dared to do so were basically dead. Later on, Keaton was defeated by the combined forces of the Aubrey's kingdom and the temple. This guy was lucky enough to escape. The Aubrey's kingdom put a bounty of 500,000 kinnar on his head. Who would have thought that he was hiding in the underworld? This price was already very high. After all, the Red Dragon Queen's head was secretly offering only 5 million, but no one was willing to do it. The risk and reward were completely disproportionate. The Red Dragon Queen controlled the Golden Sea route and the spice trade. Her annual income was more than that. Those people were offering too little. Sullen's heart ached when he thought about how Keaton's body had been destroyed by the plague potion. 500,000 gold coins flew away from his hands just like that. Even if he used Keaton's equipment to prove that he was the one who killed Keaton, the Aubrey kingdom would still believe him. However, he wouldn't be able to get a single gold coin because the Aubrey kingdom wouldn't pay him without Keaton's head. Chapter 232. Su Len didn't feel good about missing out on 500,000 kinnar. If he knew Keaton's head was so expensive, he would have left him with a whole body. Too bad it was too late. The potions in front of him weren't very useful. He was going to destroy the disgusting stuff like corpse oil. The other poisons were pretty good. As for the plague potion, Su Len hesitated for a bit and decided to keep it. It could be used on the enemy. As a matter of fact, if the plague potion was discovered in time, it wouldn't be easy to destroy a city. As long as there were priests and wizards who could purify, dispel, or detoxify the poison, it could be dealt with. It was a surprise attack. The explosive potion was pretty good too. It had a large area of effect and was very powerful. If it could be mass-produced, it would be invincible on the battlefield. It was much more powerful than grenades. If he could get the secret recipe and build a grenadier squad, he would be invincible on the battlefield. Or, he could ask the harpies to carry the potion and bombard the target with carpet bombing. The effect would be enough to flatten a city. Su Len picked up a bottle of explosive potion and asked, "Hathaway, can you derive the recipe for the explosive potion?" "The recipe for the explosive potion? That's a bit difficult. I'm not sure how long it will take." Hathaway replied as she flipped through the book, "But the cost of this explosive potion isn't cheap. You'll have to be prepared if you want to mass-produce it. Don't worry, it's just money. Northern Battlefront City is full of money now," Su Len said generously. After annexing Orlando, the Grey Dwarf, Northern Battlefront City had more than 10 million kinnar residents. On top of that, they were earning a few 100,000 every month. It wouldn't be a problem for them to buy a duchy. "Alright, I'll do it. But I suggest you recruit a few alchemists and wizards. I have too much work to do right now, and my time is limited," Hathaway said. Su Len looked at Hathaway's lab and nodded. "You do need to recruit more alchemists and wizards. It's just that Northern Battlefront City is too secluded right now. It's not well known among wizards. I'm afraid it's going to be hard to recruit wizards, Sulen said with a headache. Although the northern citadel was developing well, there weren't many people who came to join. Even those scholars were forced by Sulen. Do you have any good suggestions? Most wizards are short on money. Hire them with money. Hathaway felt a little helpless. Many wizards were otakus. If they were not doing experiments, they were doing research, or they were meditating and practicing spells. The only reason they were willing to serve the nobles was money. All right, that's all we can do. Sulen felt a little helpless. In fact, he had something that could attract a large number of wizards, and that was mithril. As long as he spread the word, a large number of wizards would come knocking on his door in less than a month. However, if that happened, Sulen might not even be able to keep his silver mine. Then I'll go first. Sulen put away the potion and was ready to leave. Wait, I'm going to make a stone golem. Can you help me? Hathaway said. Sulen had experienced the power of a stone golem in the trial space before. Each one of them weighed a few tons and had thick skin. Although they were a little slow and had no magic attacks, they were still very useful on the battlefield. Otherwise, wizards wouldn't have made them into a regular army. As for the stronger steel golems, Hathaway still couldn't make one. They required a large amount of soul crystals to be activated. Sulen only had a few pieces, and they were obtained from killing the necromancer Keaton. If he wanted a large amount of soul crystals, he had to cultivate them himself. The other way was to go to the bottomless abyss. Cultivating them himself was too bloody, and Sulen didn't consider it. This kind of thing was only done by some wizards during the Witch King era. Later, the Witch King era disappeared, and this kind of thing was listed as a taboo. Now, the only way he could think of to get a large amount of large soul crystals was to go to the bottomless abyss. As long as it was an elite-level demon, one could obtain a large piece of soul crystal after killing it. If one killed a high-grade demon, one could obtain a legendary-level soul crystal and even the divine power of the demon. Of course, it was very difficult to do so. The Arcane Kingdom once invaded the abyss, and those powerful arcanists drove the floating space city into the abyss. It caused the fall of several abyss demons. It was also in those wars that the gods began to fear the power of the arcanists. As for cultivating large soul crystals, this kind of thing was the devil's forte. They would lure greedy people through contracts, and then use various methods to lure the contractor to fall and set up various traps. It was said that after suffering, there was even a chance to get a legendary soul crystal. Of course, this statement had not been confirmed. However, the devil lured people to fall, let them be immersed in their own desires, and then harvest their souls. The probability of getting a high-quality soul crystal was very high. It was said that the method of cultivating soul crystals during the Witch King era was learned from the devil. There were many materials for the rock golem, from the general granite golem to the top obsidian golem. The difficulty of construction was different, and the price was also very different. An ordinary rock golem cost 50,000 to 60,000 kinnar, while an obsidian golem cost almost 100,000 kinnar. The obsidian golem's magic resistance and physical resistance were not comparable to the general rock golem. In terms of magic defense, even the steel golem was not as good as it. The rock golem that Hathaway built was an ordinary granite golem, and the soul core only needed a medium-sized soul crystal. Sulen had more than 30 of this level of soul crystals, all of which were contributed by the necromancer. Speaking of which, this necromancer was really a good person. Not only did he give them EXP and equipment, but he also gave them books, knowledge, and materials. He was simply the captain of the transport team. The materials for the rock golem were now available in the northern battlefront city. The high-quality granite was directly sent to the quarry, and then the carvers would carve it. The process of making a rock golem was not too complicated, and it was not too difficult for the two who already had experience in making clay golems. The creation of the rock golem could be divided into 3 parts. The first part was the construction of the body parts. This step could be done by taking them apart. Fortunately, the northern battlefront city had a large number of carvers, and Su Len was relieved to let them carve it. The second part was the assembly of the body parts. This step was like piecing together a toy model, completely piecing the rock golem together. Of course, when piecing together, they had to pay attention to the runic array inside the rock golem. The third part was the casting and activation. This part required Hathaway to cast the spell. She had to activate the soul center of the rock golem, and at the same time, she had to activate the life construct. In fact, Su Len had considered whether he could set up a production line for rock golems in the future. As long as the production line was started, he could mass-produce rock golems like an assembly line. He was not the first to have this idea. In the era of the floating city, in addition to a large number of wizards living in each floating city, there were also a large number of rock golem legions. These rock golem legions were produced using the assembly line method. This was also why the arcanists in the era of the Arcane Empire could rely on the rock golem legions to beat the demons who had always relied on the human wave tactic to the ground. After all, the birth rate of demons really could not keep up with the production rate of rock golems. A rock golem was about 3 meters tall and needed about 3,000 pounds of rock. After carving, the weight would be slightly reduced. Of course, there were also some large rock golems that weighed up to several tons. The main craft of making a rock golem was carving, and it required the use of magic essential oils and runic matrices. The carving craftsman would solve the problem of carving. As for the runic matrices, they needed Hathaway to carve them. After carving the runes, they also needed to use gemstone powder, magic alloy, and other materials to completely integrate them into the body of the rock golem. This step was also very important. Gemstone powder and magic alloy could be said to be the most expensive things in the rock golem, apart from the soul crystals. Su Len optimized and modified some parts of the rock golem according to the principles of mechanical control. Finally, the rock golem was assembled. After the assembly was completed, it needed to be activated with the soul crystals and cast the spell to activate the life of the construct. Although all this was very simple, Su Len and Hathaway were busy for 5 days to make a rock golem. The two of them went back and forth between the Lord's castle and the laboratory almost every day. It took 3 days just to carve the runes and improve and optimize the energy transmission system, and 2 days to carve and assemble. The carving of each part of the rock golem was done strictly according to the dimensions given by Su Len. The head, torso, and limbs were all made separately. The advantage of this was that even if the carving was broken, it was easy to replace. All the parts of the rock golem were made into standard parts, and it was more convenient to assemble the rock golem. After the parts were made into standard parts, it was very easy to repair the rock golem. If a part was broken, it could be replaced directly. As long as the soul core was not damaged, the rock golem would not die. This was also the preparation that Su Len made in advance to try to build a rock golem factory in the future. After the final assembly was completed, Hathaway took a medium-sized soul crystal and began to activate the rock golem. She also cast the spell to activate the life of the construct. Su Len had not figured out how to replace these steps. If he could not solve this problem, the rock golem factory in Northern Town would need a group of wizards who specialized in activating rock golems. Powerful elemental energy burst out from Hathaway's body, followed by a throbbing of the soul. The soul crystal turned into a purple soul energy and merged with the rock golem's body in an instant, and finally calmed down. At the same time, the rock golem moved in an instant. Ding! The host has participated in the production of rock golems. You have obtained more information on magic technology. Your magic technology experience has increased. Chapter 233. Northern Wasteland. It was already midsummer. Even though Northern Wasteland City was located in the north of the continent, the weather was still very hot. Su Len was lying in his room with two small wind elementals acting as electric fans. The wind blew gently, and there was a fruit platter on the table next to him. There were all kinds of fresh and juicy fruits on the fruit platter. Just looking at them was enough to whet one's appetite. Su Len was lying in a rocking chair. The two maids, Angela and Annie, were massaging his calves and shoulders. Chris was sitting at the side. She picked up a tender cherry and put it in her mouth before feeding it to Su Len. Su Len opened his mouth and ate the cherry. He hugged Chris and took a bite. This was what life was like. Northern Wasteland City had been developing well recently. It was also because of this that Su Len had the time to enjoy the luxurious life of a feudal noble. "My lord, there's an urgent military situation." Just as Su Len was enjoying his luxurious life, a guard reported from outside the door. "Come in," Su Len said lazily. Angela and Annie's massage was too comfortable. His entire body felt soft and relaxed. "My lord, there's a large-scale battle in the Sierra de Lotus in the north. It's speculated that both sides are powerful magic beasts." "Have you confirmed what kind of magic beasts it is?" Su Len asked. "The reconnaissance team has already sent people to investigate. There's no news so far." "I see." Su Len waved his hand. There had been a few news reports about high-level magic beasts recently. Su Len was also curious. After this year, the high-level magic beasts in the northern wasteland seemed to have entered the active period. Under normal circumstances, high-ranked magic beasts had their own territories. They would divide their territories, and under normal circumstances, these high-ranked magic beasts wouldn't easily leave their territories. But now, there were continuous fights between high-ranked magic beasts. Aside from this, when Su Len was building Mirror Lake City, he discovered that it wasn't just magic beasts, even wild beasts were becoming restless. Winter wolves rarely appeared in the northern city, but there were 5 of them last time. Even the patrolling army often reported that there were wild beasts attacking the territory. This was very unusual in Sullen's eyes. Under normal circumstances, wild beasts would not attack humans, especially human armies. Under normal circumstances, those wild beasts would avoid human armies. Things like this rarely happened unless there was a lack of food in the winter. The starving wild beasts had no other choice but to attack the territory to obtain food. It was summer now, the time when the plants in the northern wasteland were the most lush. The water and grass were abundant, and wild beasts were multiplying. It was the time of the year when food was the most abundant. During this time, wild beasts would not provoke humans. But now, there were wild beasts attacking human territory. Su Len thought for a while, but couldn't figure it out. He was a bit annoyed. After saying goodbye to Hathaway, Su Len went to the lab to find Hathaway. If there was anyone in the territory who had the most knowledge, it would probably be Hathaway. Karina and Grace were a bit behind. When he arrived at the lab, Hathaway was drawing on the lab table. Su Len glanced at the drawings. There were stone golems of different sizes on the drawings. These stone golems had been separated into different parts. At the same time, the composition and runes on them were a bit different. At the same time, there were some golems that Su Len had never seen before. They should be the ones recorded in the book that Su Len obtained from the necromancer. "What kind of golems are these?" Su Len asked curiously. The golems on the drawings were very different from the stone golems. They didn't have the heavy feeling of the stone golems. On the contrary, they had smooth lines and looked very agile. Their hands were sharp claws, and they also had a pair of wings. "These are gargoyle golems," Hathaway explained. This kind of golem is a variant of the rock golem. Unlike ordinary golems, gargoyle golems have the ability to fly and don't have the weakness of ordinary rock golems. Gargoyles move very quickly. They can fly? Sulen asked in surprise. Yes, they are flying golems. Hathaway nodded. And these golems are very different from the stone golems. Normal stone golems aren't made as professional combat units. The stone golems made by wizards are multi-purpose golems. They can help their masters with their work, and they can also fight in critical moments. These gargoyle golems are different. They are completely made for combat, so they are called battle golems. Battle golems? How are they fighting? Sulen asked with great interest. Not bad. Their attack power is close to that of the stone golems, but their defense is a little lower. If they fight with the stone golems, they can't do anything to each other. If they fight with the obsidian golems, the gargoyle golems are no match for them. However, these golems were designed to fight against air units. After hearing Hathaway's explanation, Sulen also understood the characteristics of these gargoyle golems. First, they were more expensive than stone golems, but less expensive than obsidian golems. Second, the gargoyle golems had decent attack power and low energy consumption, which was only consumed when they were activated. The dormant gargoyle was like a normal stone golem, so it didn't consume any energy. Third, they could fight against air units, which was the original intention of the gargoyle golems. Ordinary golems, from clay golems to stone golems to steel golems, basically didn't have the ability to fight against air units. They could only do so after special modifications. The gargoyle golems were specifically designed to deal with air units. Most wizard schools had the technology to create ordinary golems, but after the modification of the basic golems, there was a big difference. Each school had their own technology to create golems. For example, the armor golem looked like a knight's plate armor. It was flexible and fast, and its cost was lower than that of the stone golems. There was also the skeleton golem, which cost even less. The gargoyle golem was a special type of golem in the necromancer school. The cost of this golem was only half of the obsidian golem, and it also used some knowledge of the necromancer. Because it used obsidian as its main body, the gargoyle golem had high magic and physical resistance. We have the harpies now, so we don't need the gargoyle golems for the time being, but they can be used as a technical reserve, Sulen said after thinking for a moment. I know. I only plan to make a few and put them on the roof of the castle. Once someone invades from above, they will wake up and attack immediately, Hathaway said with a nod. By the way, why did you come to see me this time? Hathaway asked. Sulen said with dissatisfaction, can't I just come to see you? Huh. Hathaway rolled her eyes at Sulen. Okay. I admit that I came to see you about something, but it was just in passing. I came to see you specifically, Sulen emphasized. Hathaway looked at Sulen without saying anything. Her expression was as if to say, do you think I'll believe you? Scumbag. Something happened in the territory recently. I want to ask if you know the reason. Sulen pretended not to see her expression and changed the topic. What's the problem? Hathaway asked. There have been a lot of wild beasts attacking the army and slaves in the territory recently. Now is not the winter season when there is a lack of food, so they shouldn't be in such a situation. Also, the soldiers of the reconnaissance camp have reported that they have found several high-grade magical beasts fighting. I feel that something is not right in the wasteland recently, Sulen said with confusion. Something is not right. Hathaway nodded and said, maybe you didn't notice it because you're not a wizard, but I noticed that the concentration of elements in Northgard City is slowly increasing. The elemental energy is also a bit chaotic. I think there's a connection between these things. What connection? I wonder if you've heard of the elemental tide? Hathaway asked as she took off her spectacles. Sulen frowned and said, elemental tide? What's that? The elemental tide is a term for the periodic changes in elemental energy discovered by wizards. It involves a lot of advanced knowledge, and it's hard to understand without systematic study. Hathaway looked at Su Len with an expression that said, "You're stupid. I can't explain it to you." The veins on Sullen's forehead twitched. "Tell me about it." Su Luen resisted the urge to spank her and said, "All right." Hathaway shrugged and continued, "You should know that the place we're living in is called a plane in wizard theory. There are many planes like this in the multiverse. Some planes are flat, wrapped in a layer of membrane to protect them. Some planes are planets, and some are half-planes, and so on. All of these planes were first born in the origin sea. Some people call it the ether. The origin sea is boundless. It's filled with the most primitive energy. All the energy in the multiverse comes from the origin sea. In other words, the elemental energy around us originated from the origin sea. As for the elemental tide, let's make a simple analogy. Think of the origin sea as a vast ocean. This ocean is constantly moving. You should know that the ocean has its own ebb and flow. These are all natural phenomena. So, the origin sea is an ocean of energy. It has its own ebb and flow, and this energy ebb and flow is called the elemental tide by wizards. Normally, the sea level will only rise after the ebb and flood the coast. However, the elemental tide is different. It's energy that rises. The rise of energy in the origin sea will directly lead to the rise of energy in the multiverse. Chapter 234. So in the multiverse, there will be an increase or decrease in the concentration of elements. At the same time, the distribution of the energy is not uniform. Some planes have high elemental energy, and some planes have low elemental energy. Some planes that are about to reach their end will gradually die. You're saying that our world is experiencing an elemental tide? Su Len asked. Not so stupid, Hathaway praised, looking like a child that could be taught. Su Len looked at the little witch with his spear. The elemental tide cycle is very long. Half of the time, it's 500 to 800 years. Sometimes, it can even last for thousands of years. The time is not fixed. If it lasts for so long, how can you be sure that it's caused by the elemental tide? Su Len was a little curious. And it's only happening to beasts and high-level magical beasts. Why doesn't it happen to humans? Hathaway looked at Su Len with a look of disdain. As early as a few decades ago, the wizards predicted that the elemental tide was about to start. After all, it's been a few hundred years since the last elemental tide. As for the beasts and magical beasts, it's because they are more sensitive to elements than humans. Many beasts may look like normal beasts, but who knows if they have the blood of magical beasts? These beasts can easily mutate during the elemental tide and evolve into magical beasts. Magical beasts are born to control elements. In terms of their sensitivity to elements, even wizards can't compare. Didn't you learn a domain? Open your domain and feel the changes in the elemental energy in your domain. You should find something. Su Len nodded, then slowly closed his eyes and activated his lightning domain. He did not move the elemental energy around him. Instead, Su Len opened up his huge spiritual network and began to feel the elemental energy around him. Soon, he found that the elemental energy around him was a little different. The elemental energy in the outside world was a lot denser today, and it was very active. He could also clearly feel that the consumption of energy when he used his domain had decreased. There are many benefits to the elemental tide. For example, it will make it easier for wizards to cast spells, and the number of ordinary people with the potential to become a wizard will also increase. Other than these benefits, the disadvantage is that the magic beasts will become more powerful, and their numbers will also increase. The elemental tide is fair to everyone, including magical beasts. The requirement to become a wizard was very high. If he wanted to become a wizard, he had to have at least 18 points of spirit. Of course, as a child with the potential to become a wizard, would need to reach at least 12 points. Then, according to the training method of wizard apprentices, their will would reach 18 points when they reached adulthood. Under normal circumstances, the apprentice would be trained between the ages of 8 to 14. Only those who had a will of 12 points would have the opportunity to become a wizard. It was said that during the period of the Arcane Empire, the arcanists had a magical weave. As long as one's mental strength reached 15 points when they reached adulthood, they could become an arcanist. The magic net greatly reduced the threshold for becoming an arcanist, which led to the number of arcanists in the Arcane Empire being 100 times more than the current wizards. The huge number of arcanists created the glorious civilization of the Arcane Empire. Su Lin slowly opened his eyes. Just now, he had felt the difference in the world. The elements had become more active, and the difficulty of casting spells had decreased. This meant that more wizards would appear, and at the same time, the world would change. The most obvious change at the beginning of the elemental tide was the increase in the number of powerful beings. The original old pattern would definitely be broken. Even many powerful creatures active in the last era would awaken. Some powerful creatures would fall into a deep slumber or leave the prime material plane for the astral plane due to the weakening of the elemental concentration. The main material world would make them feel uncomfortable, and the stronger the creature, the more obvious it would be. The increase in strength would definitely breed more ambition. They would be dissatisfied with the old order and want to gain more benefits. Then, the only way was to fight. Su Lin could already foresee that there would be endless wars on the continent in the future. Su Lin was not worried about the upcoming challenges. The elemental tide gave everyone an experience buff, not just some people. With the system, he was confident that he would become stronger and stronger. In the quiet night, everything returned to normal. In the summer night, there was still a dry heat in the air. There were sounds of insects outside. In the room in the Lord's castle, Su Lin did not sleep after the battle. After knowing that the elemental tide was coming, he felt a sense of urgency. In the Sage era, his mind was the clearest. In the end, Su Lin gave up. The elemental tide was not something that could be changed by human power. The only thing he could do was to make himself stronger. He could not change the changes in the world, so he had to occupy an advantageous position in this change. After thinking it through, Su Lin no longer hesitated. He hugged the soft body beside him and found a comfortable position to fall asleep. When he woke up the next day, Su Lin felt refreshed. Hathaway and Alex had not woken up yet. The little succubus Chris had already left. Su Lin got dressed under the care of Angela and Annie. After getting used to the feudal aristocratic life of being served by others, it felt great. After a simple breakfast, Su Lin did some simple exercises. Then, he started his work for the day. During this time, the summer grain had started to mature. The wheat planted in the northern city could be harvested. A portion of the wheat would be sent to the city lord's castle. The other portion would be sold. In addition to purchasing the summer grain, Su Lin went to the military camp. During this time, the army in the northern city did not engage in any large-scale battles. However, there were continuous small-scale battles. Some of the spearmen had finally been promoted to the spear guard. Now, there were only 2 formation breaker soldiers in the northern city. If he wanted to obtain more soldiers, he would need a large number of spear guard soldiers to undergo training. The training method of the formation breaker soldiers was crueler than that of the spear guard soldiers. After a period of training, they would be arranged to try to advance. If Su Lin could recruit 700 formation breaker soldiers, he could completely rely on the formation breaker to defeat the orc army like the last time he encountered the orc invasion. Now, the strength of the soldiers in the northern city had begun to develop into a high-end combat force. With the beginning of the elemental tide, the enemies they would encounter in the future would become stronger and stronger. In the face of such enemies, the effect of ordinary soldiers was infinitely close to zero. Moreover, the population of the northern city limited Sulan's ability to use the human wave tactic. Since he could not gain an advantage in numbers, he could only crush them in terms of quality. As long as he had enough time, Sulan was confident that he could obtain more spear guard soldiers and formation breaker soldiers. However, while Sulan was training, more and more attacks began to occur in the territory. In order to ensure the safety of the territory, Sulan began to send more people to the territory. At the same time, he took the initiative to eliminate the potential dangers around the territory. In order to let more spear guards become spear guards, Sulan personally led the spear guards to clear out all kinds of monsters. The Thorn Forest was the name Sulan gave to the area because there were a lot of low shrubs growing in the forest. According to the scouts, there seemed to be magic beasts appearing here. In fact, the stronger a beast was, the faster it would evolve into a magic beast. On the contrary, the weaker a beast was, the faster it would evolve into a magic beast. Of course, the potential between the two was different. The soldiers were wearing armor and wielding swords, cutting a path in the thorn forest. The danger level of this area had increased. In fact, even the weakest magic beast was very dangerous. The lowest challenge level of a magic beast was level 9, which was equivalent to the peak of a Grand Knight. It was only one step away from becoming a Knight Commander. The sun was rising, and the weather was getting hotter. The soldiers were wearing heavy armor, and they were all sweating under the sun. The armor was airtight. Sulan looked at the sun and said, "Stop advancing. Set up camp here and rest. Be careful of the danger. Also, make a fire and cook. Continue searching in the afternoon." "Yes, sir." The soldiers breathed a sigh of relief and began to find a cool place to rest. Although they were resting, none of the soldiers took off their armor. Even their weapons were placed where they could easily reach. They were ready to fight at any time. On the other side, some of the soldiers began to set up camp. According to the requirements, even if it was a temporary camp, it had to be protected. This was a special requirement in the training of the Northern Town Army. Fortunately, they had brought a lot of tools, so they set up camp quickly. Some of them set up camp, while others began to collect firewood, cut trees, and dig up some wild vegetables and mushrooms. Many of the soldiers in the Northern Town Army had undergone wilderness survival training. After all, the barbarians lived in the wilderness all year round. They had a lot of wilderness survival skills. Although they couldn't read and couldn't even write their own names, they were like fish in water in the wilderness. They didn't have to worry about starving to death. Even in the wilderness, they could identify the size and species of animals based on their footprints. With such ability, Sulan naturally wouldn't let it go. Therefore, the Northern Town Army included wilderness survival training. If someone from the previous world saw this, they would instantly understand that Sulan was planning to train all the soldiers according to the requirements of the special forces. The construction of the camp was very fast. At the same time, smoke rose from the kitchen. The soldiers took out the dry food they had prepared and poured it into the pot. Then, they added some wild vegetables and mushrooms. Soon, the aroma of the food filled the air. Ah! Just as everyone was about to eat, a scream suddenly came. Sulan didn't even think. His body turned into a shadow and rushed over. Chapter 235. Ah! A blood-curdling scream was heard, but it stopped abruptly. Sulan turned into a blur and rushed out. The other soldiers followed closely behind him. Everyone held their weapons. No one dared to be careless. Sulan soon arrived at the scene. However, what he found made Sulan frown. My lord! A new spearman recruit had a frightened expression and his body was trembling. Beside him was the corpse of another spearman. However, only half of this spearman's corpse was left with blood. What happened? Where is the murderer? Su Lan looked around and did not find any monsters. Carl was eaten by that flower. The spearman soldier stammered. Su Lan looked at the corpse in front of him. There were some irregular teeth marks on the corpse. The corpse was badly mutilated. It looked like the upper half of the body had been swallowed. Even the iron-plated armor on the body was torn apart. Flower? What flower? The soldier, who had just joined the army not long ago, was so frightened that he stuttered. It took him a while to calm down. Carl and I came here to pick mushrooms and wild vegetables. We were going back to cook. Carl saw a patch of mushrooms under the tree and was about to pick them. But as soon as we walked over, a strange flower beside us suddenly opened its big mouth. We didn't even have time to react. Carl was swallowed. I reached out and tried to pull him over, but only his lower half was pulled back. The soldier was nervous. He pointed at a strange plant not far away. His face was pale. It was obvious that he was greatly frightened. Su Lan glanced at the plant. It was a plant similar to a sunflower. However, the color of the flower was blood red. The color was unusually bright. The stem of the sunflower looked like a cloth bag. There was also a pool of blood near the plant that had not dried up. Sunwill flower? Sullen's face darkened when he saw the plant in front of him. Su Lan had seen this type of plant in Hathaway's Monster Guide. It was a type of mutated plant. It did not rely on photosynthesis to grow like normal plants. Instead, it devoured all kinds of animals and humans. This type of plant could also move on its own, but at a very slow speed. Sunflower, mutated plant, man-eating flower, grade 3, gregarious, creature level, 13. Challenge rating, level 8. Has spell-like ability. Strength, 16, agility, 6, spirit, 23, vitality, 21, charm, 15 talents, camouflage, sneak attack, perception, intermediate regeneration, decoy skills, devouring attack, vine tentacles, hallucinatory fragrance, poison attack difficulty, C+. Sunwill flower was a type of mutated plant. This type of plant was the most dangerous type of man-eating plant. It could be found all over the continent. There were many types of mutated plants that could attack, such as snake vines, bloody thorns, caraman's trees, and so on. These types of plants would actively attack the animals around them. These types of plants had evolved from normal plants and had all kinds of terrifying spell-like abilities. For example, snake vines could bite and entangle their prey like poisonous snakes and release poison. Sir. At this time, the soldiers of the northern battlefront city arrived. Su Lan ordered them, "There are man-eating plants here. Don't get close to them. Everyone, be alert. Don't be ambushed." Man-eating plants? Hearing Sullen's words, the soldiers immediately became nervous. They looked around the plants and scanned the area. Kate looked at the body on the ground with a grim expression. "Sir, what kind of plant is this? It swallowed a person in one bite." As a hero that Su Lan had discovered from the army, Kate's strength was not outstanding. However, he had sharp instincts on the battlefield and was very suitable to be a commander. Sunwill flower. Su Luan uttered a name. "Sir, how do we deal with these plants? Why don't we just set this place on fire and burn it all down?" Kate whispered. "We brought some kerosene this time. It shouldn't be a problem to set this forest on fire." The surrounding forest was so quiet that it made people's hearts palpitate. The forest in front of him gave him a very dangerous feeling. Su Lan shook his head. "It's useless. These plants are very resistant to fire. Their roots are underground. If you want to burn them, you'll need a lot of kerosene." Sunwill flower's ability was not only to ambush and swallow people, but also its fragrance. This kind of plant's fragrance had a very strong hallucinogenic ability. It could make people fall into hallucinations unknowingly and then be controlled by the plant. Sometimes, the number of people was not an advantage for this kind of plant. Su Len flipped his palm and a sharp sword appeared in his hand. He then moved his body and rushed toward the SwordWill flower. This kind of man-eating plant had a special characteristic, which was that it would become very lazy when digesting its prey after swallowing. At this time, as long as they didn't attack, they wouldn't attack again under normal circumstances. Moreover, when they were digesting food, the reaction of these man-eating plants would also be reduced. Experienced adventurers would prepare some cattle, sheep, and other animals for them to devour. When they were full, they would suddenly attack. As a grade 3 plant, they were very strong. Although they were only rated C+ in the monster guide, if you were careless, the consequences would be unforgettable. No, there might not be a future. This kind of plant's rating was because they had very obvious weaknesses. As long as you knew their weaknesses and made a corresponding attack plan based on their weaknesses, there were still many ways to deal with them. However, as plants, they had one thing in common: their most fatal weakness was the underground part. Su Len tiptoed and quickly rose up. The sharp sword in his hand slashed toward the SwordWill flower in front of him. The flower-shaped parts on the surface of the man-eating plant were its feeding and digestive organs. The bulging thing that looked like a bag was the body of the North Town City soldier. As Su Len expected, when Su Len attacked, the SwordWill flower's reaction was much slower. When Su Len's sword stabbed into the stem, the SwordWill flower suddenly attacked. A large number of vines shot out from the ground. Su Len's sharp sword cut horizontally. It was a plant, but it felt like cutting rubber with a knife. The vines broke, and bright red liquid flowed out of the cracks. It looked like blood. These vines were very strong. Although they had been cut off, they kept twisting after falling to the ground. It felt like the tentacles of an octopus were cut off. Whoosh! At this moment, the huge mouth that looked like a sunflower suddenly opened. The huge mouth opened ferociously. Inside the huge petals of the SwordWill flower, there were densely packed dagger-like teeth. If you were bitten by these teeth, you would immediately be torn into pieces. Inside the petals, there were things like blood vessels. Those were channels used to transport nutrients. At this time, the body of the soldier inside was already beyond recognition. At the same time, a bloody smell came, mixed with the smell of acid. It was the digestive fluid secreted by plants to digest their prey. Su Len stabbed a few times, causing some damage to the petals. However, these were not fatal. At the same time, a large number of root-like things suddenly broke out of the ground and surrounded Su Len. Sword skill, sweep sword skill, cut iron. 2 streaks of sword light shot out from the sword. The power of the sword light was so great that it directly cut the surrounding plant roots into two. The roots were cut off, causing severe pain to the SwordWill flower. The SwordWill flower's mouth also involuntarily twisted. Then, the huge petals suddenly opened like a bloody mouth and bit Su Len. However, although it was fast, it was far from enough compared to Su Len. How could it be bitten? He slid left and twisted his body. Not only did he avoid the SwordWill flower's attack, but he also took the opportunity to backhand the SwordWill flower's roots. The roots, which were as tough as dragon skin, were not cut off. Su Len moved quickly. He did not withdraw the sword in his hand. Instead, he followed the trace and cut directly. Faced with high-speed cutting, the SwordWill flower's tough roots could no longer withstand it. The ferocious mouth was directly cut off. Even so, the SwordWill flower's mouth did not show any signs of death. Instead, it kept twisting and struggling on the ground. Immediately afterward, a large number of roots broke out of the ground and madly besieged Su Len. These roots directly formed a circle, encircling Su Len in the middle, and then wrapped around him in an instant. There were also many barbs on these roots. If one was wrapped around by them, they would definitely be torn into countless pieces. Thunderstorm spell. Strong lightning burst out from Sullen's body. As the power of lightning was the most likely to trigger negative effects, under such dense lightning, all the sunwell flowers' roots trembled in an instant. Many of the roots were directly electrocuted into charcoal. The strong electric current flowed along the roots into the sunwell flower's underground part. Even the sunwell flower's underground part was constantly trembling from the electric current. Not far away, there was a bulge on the ground that was neither big nor small. Seeing this, Su Luan's eyes flashed with lightning. Lightning spear. Powerful lightning gathered in Sullen's hand in an instant, forming a spear completely made of lightning. Then, he waved his arm. The lightning spear instantly pierced the air, then pierced the soil, and instantly sank into the bulge. A muffled sound of thunder came from the ground under his feet, like winter thunder. Then, the trembling roots on the ground instantly lost their support and fell down one after another. A large amount of lightning jumped back and forth on the ground, and it took a few seconds for it to slowly dissipate. Chapter 236. Ding! Congratulations to the host. You have slain a rank 3 mutant sunflower. You have gained 2,350 experience points. Su Lan heaved a sigh of relief when he heard the system notification. The sunflower was not much of a threat to Su Lan. What was more troublesome was that its weak point was underground. It would not be easy to kill it. My lord, are you all right? Kite asked when he saw that the battle was over. Su Lan shook his head. I'm fine. Take your men and dig out the roots of the sunflower. Yes, my lord. Kite immediately obeyed and led dozens of soldiers to dig along the roots of the sunflower. Apart from some spearmen who were about to be promoted to the Spear Imperial Guard, the rest of the soldiers were elite spearmen. The expansion of the army required them to participate in several battles to be promoted as soon as possible. While the soldiers were digging, Su Luan took a knife and began to deal with the sunflower's mouthpart. At this time, the ferocious mouthpart had lost its vitality and was lying softly on the ground. Although it looked ferocious and horrible, its pollen was a good magic material. Hallucinogenic pollen could be used to make hallucinogenic potions. It was also added to many potions, such as the Azure Potion. It was a potion used to increase the will of the user. After taking it, the user would see a lot of illusions. The user had to get rid of all the illusions in order to increase the will of the user. It would increase the user's will by about 1 or 2 points. Originally, Su Luan didn't know much about these materials. It was Hathaway who forced him to write them down, so that he wouldn't miss them if he didn't know what they were. Su Lan took a small knife and was about to cut the sunflower's mouthpart. However, as soon as the knife came close, the sunflower, which had no signs of life, bit at Su Lan. However, Su Luan was already prepared for this situation. He flipped his palm and a thunderball instantly appeared in his hand. Then, the thunderball collided with the sunwell flower's mouth, and a powerful thunder power instantly erupted. The sunflower's mouthpart kept trembling and twitching. In the end, it stopped moving. The sunflower's mouthpart was similar to that of a poisonous snake. Even if it was dead, its head would still attack people who came close. After the lightning attack, the sunflower's mouthpart was completely dead. Su Lan then started to collect the pollen. Although the sunflower looked like a flower, it was not. Its pollen was in a pouch above its mouthpart. Su Lan searched for a while and cut open the sunflower's mouthpart. He found a pouch the size of a fist on the wall. It contained the sunflower's hallucinogenic pollen. After finding the pollen, the rest of the mouthpart was cut open. The corpse of the North Town City soldier that had turned into chunks of flesh was taken out too. Even though it was beyond recognition, the North Town City would cremate the body into ashes and bury it in the cemetery of martyrs, as he had died in the battle. Although it was time-consuming, it was very important for the soldiers. It also gave the North Town City soldiers a belief that other armies did not have. In this era, the dead soldiers would be buried on the spot. If they were lucky, they would leave a tombstone. If they were unlucky, there would be nothing left. Moreover, the death pensions of the soldiers were often embezzled. Of course, most of the time, there was no pension at all. Only after winning a battle would the nobles be merciful and take out an extremely small portion of the spoils of war as pension. It was different in the North Town City. All the soldiers who died in the battle would receive a pension. If they made contributions, the pension would be more. Normally, the North Town City's pension would be 5 times the annual salary of the soldier, and it would be paid in one lump sum. The payment of the pension was very strict, and Su Luan kept a close eye on it. He didn't want the pension not to fall into the hands of the soldiers' relatives, but to be pocketed by others. Once such a scandal occurred, it would be a great blow to the reputation of Northern Town. Apart from the pension, the North Town City also treated the families of the martyrs well. For example, the families of the martyrs would not have to pay taxes on their land for 10 years. At the same time, the orphans of the martyrs would be accepted into the school under construction in the North Town City. At the same time, the City Hall would send officials to the families of the martyrs every year. The North Town City Army was the most loyal army in the world. The soldiers moved quickly. The root of the sunwell flower was slowly exposed under the digging. Although Su Len already knew that the sunwell flower had a large part underground, he was still shocked. The mouth of the sunwell flower above the ground was only 1/5 of the mouth of the sunwell flower underground. As the soil was constantly cleaned, the roots of the sunwell flower were soon exposed. In the center of the roots of the sunwell flower was a huge sarcoma, which was the vital part of the sunwell flower. There was a huge hole in the sarcoma-like thing, and the blood inside had already dried up. However, Su Len did not care about that. Instead, he began to look for something on the sarcoma-like thing. Soon, Su Len found an egg-sized red gemstone. It was the most valuable part of the sunwell flower. Wizards called it the blood essence stone. The stone itself was poisonous. It could cause paralysis and hallucinations. As long as the poison was neutralized, it could be used to make a potion that could permanently increase one's lifespan. A single sunwell flower could increase a person's lifespan by 10 to 15 years. This was why it was so valuable in the black market. As soon as it appeared, it would be snatched up immediately. Although this world was a fantasy world, for those below the legendary level, their lifespan was still an insurmountable problem. As long as they reached the legendary level, even a warrior could live up to 200 to 300 years old. Wizards could even live up to 1,000 years. However, most of the legendary warriors did not live to 300 years old. As warriors who fought on the front lines, every one of them had fought their way through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Injuries were nothing out of the ordinary. However, if they were injured too much when they were young, their lifespan would be affected. The blood essence stone had no effect on legendary wizards. They had better treasures like the Fountain of Youth, Water of Life, and other miraculous items that could greatly increase one's lifespan. However, for nobles, this kind of life-extending potion was very tempting. After all, not many nobles would think that their lifespan was too long. This kind of potion was not very useful to Su Len. Although he was also a warrior, he was also a wizard. When he reached the legendary level, he had awakened his domain power. Even if he lived according to his normal lifespan, he would still live longer than legendary wizards. Su Len did not plan to use it himself. Instead, he planned to let Hathaway make the potion and sell it. If this thing appeared in the auction house, he was sure that the nobles would give him a satisfactory price. After putting away the blood essence stone, Su Luan ordered the soldiers to burn the roots of the sunwell flower and then ordered the army to withdraw from the forest. If there were more mutant plants similar to the sunwell flower in the forest, these soldiers would not be able to do much. Therefore, he planned to explore alone. After ordering Kate to defend the camp, Su Len entered the forest alone. This forest was very strange. There were not even many insects. Although the plants looked lush, there was a sense of eeriness. At this time, it was already a little dark, and the light in the forest was even worse. Su Luen blessed himself with an invisibility spell, and then went around from the side. As he passed through the thorny forest, there were many strange trees and flowers around him. Their bodies were obviously larger than ordinary plants, a bit like an ancient primitive forest. Su Luen deliberately touched these plants a few times with something, and the whole plant moved a little, but these plants did not attack. Maybe these plants did not need to eat yet. Su Luen even found a plant similar to a willow tree. The plant had many vines that swayed with the wind. It looked normal, but Su Luen, who had read the monster guide, recognized it at a glance. It was a Karoman's tree. When this plant did not attack, it was no different from a normal plant. However, when it attacked, its numerous vines would immediately wrap around the target like snakes. It would also secrete a large amount of hallucinogenic and paralyzing liquid to paralyze the target. At the same time, it would also inject digestive fluid into the target. The organs and even the bones of the target would melt into liquid and be absorbed by the Kraman's tree. Although this plant was ferocious, it was a very good material for wizards. Wizards would often deliberately plant this kind of thing. The Kraman's tree trunk was very magical, and it was a good material for making magic staffs. The hallucinogenic fluid it secreted was also a supplementary material for some magic potions. Su Len looked at the Kraman's tree in front of him and frowned. He muttered, "A Kraman's tree? Is it wild or planted here on purpose?" After hesitating for a while, Su Len did not attack the tree. Instead, he carefully went around it. After going around the Kraman's tree, Su Len continued to go deeper into the forest. Soon, a large field of lavender flowers appeared in front of him. After quietly approaching, Su Len realized that this field of flowers did not seem to grow naturally. Instead, it seemed to be artificially cultivated. Although the flowers were not trimmed, he could still see some traces left behind. After getting closer, Su Len also recognized the flowers planted in this field of flowers. These purple flowers were all datura flowers. Su Len felt that these flowers were alive. Chapter 237. Tulips? That's not right. Why are tulips purple? Seeing such a large sea of flowers, Sullen's brows wrinkled. Who would plant tulips here? Ordinary tulips alone were not fatal, but they emitted a special kind of poison. People who stayed in this sea of flowers for a while would be poisoned. They would feel dizzy and nauseous. If they did not leave in time, they would fall into a coma and become fertilizer for this sea of flowers. The purple tulips in front of him were obviously not ordinary. If Su Len guessed correctly, their poison was stronger and more violent. Although this sea of flowers was luxuriant, it seemed that no one had taken care of it for a long time. Su Len found a lot of things like flower seeds on the ground near the sea of flowers. It should be for some reason that these flower seeds did not take root and germinate. In some places, the growth of the flowers was obviously messy. Su Len also found that behind this sea of flowers, he could vaguely see the outline of some broken buildings. However, it should be because the weathering was too severe. It was impossible to distinguish their original appearance. Sullen's heart became more and more excited. It was obvious that this was a ruin that had not been excavated. Su Len observed for a while and did not find the entrance of the ruin. However, this was a normal phenomenon. Not all ruins had an entrance. Some ruins that were severely damaged only had some broken walls. Many ruins were actually excavated by various adventurer teams. Of course, there were still many dangers in these ruins. Su Len did not act rashly. However, just as he was about to return, he suddenly saw that the weathered wall at the edge of the Sea of Flowers was a little different. Su Len carefully avoided these plants and observed from the side. Spatial folds? Sullen's expression was a little surprised. The abnormality looked like a piece of paper that had been wrinkled from the side. It looked very strange. Is this the wizard's secret realm? Su Len suddenly thought of a possibility. Thinking of this, Su Len felt that his guess was correct. However, to be sure, he still needed a professional to take a look. Su Len did not continue to move. The secret realm of sorcerers was a masterpiece of the ancient sorcerers. Those ancient sorcerers were well versed in the knowledge of space, planes, and other things. After some research, they created a kind of magical technology. During the period of the Arcane Empire, the technology of the wizard's secret realm was developed to its peak. Some powerful wizards even opened up a plane as their own territory. There were also wizards who found a half-plane in the astral world and linked it to the main material world. Secret realms also varied in size. The first secret realms used spatial magic to hide some areas of the prime material plane. These kinds of secret realms were the most common, and the space inside was also the smallest. As for secret realms that used semi-planes or entire planes to transform them, they were now very rare. Moreover, it was very likely that there were ancient and dangerous creatures in the secret realm. There might even be all sorts of magical traps. If he wasn't prepared, it was very likely that he would fail miserably. Some secret realms even had magical pets or magical beasts left behind by the ancient adepts. It was important to know that some magical beasts had a very long lifespan, and many magical beasts would use a long period of dormancy to delay the aging of life. Who knew if there were such monsters in the secret realms that had been closed for thousands of years or even longer? If they were unlucky, there might be a giant dragon. Even if it was the weakest white dragon among the 5-colored dragons, thousands of years was enough for it to grow into an ancient dragon. In the face of a giant dragon of this level, the average legendary strongman would be a piece of cake. After a round of investigation, Su Len returned to the camp outside the forest. At this time, Carter had almost built the camp. When Su Len returned to the camp, he immediately sent someone back to inform Hathaway to come as soon as possible. After suspecting that there was a secret realm here, Su Len began to block the news. Once the news about the appearance of the secret realm of sorcerers spread, all the sorcerers on the continent would come back to explore. At that time, even Su Len would be powerless to stop it. Although he was now a legendary strongman, there were many legendary strongmen on the continent. A secret realm that had never been discovered, the resources in it were enough to make these legendary strongmen excited. In a moment, all the soldiers were sent out to clear the monsters in the wasteland. No monsters or people were allowed to come close to the forest. After waiting in the camp for a day, Su Len saw Hathaway rushing over the next day. "Where is the secret realm? Take me there quickly." Hathaway saw Su Len and did not have time to rest. She immediately asked about the secret realm. "The secret realm will always be there. It won't run away. Calm down first." Seeing Hathaway's state, Su Len had to force her to calm down. She was not suitable to explore the ruins in her current state. After hearing Sullen's advice, Hathaway finally calmed down and began to rest. At the same time, she prepared various items for the exploration. It was not until the third day that Su Len brought Hathaway to the thorn forest. The two quickly arrived at the place where Su Len killed the Sunwill flower. After arriving, Hathaway began to cast various spells on them. Invisibility. Hide tracks. Eliminate scent. Energy shield. Elemental resistance. Poison resistance. Bear's endurance. Cat's grace. A series of support spells were released from Hathaway's hands. Su Len could clearly feel that his strength had increased by a notch. Hathaway, who was already a third-rank wizard, had no problem casting these spells. The two then followed the path that Su Len took last time and went deep into the forest. As soon as they entered, Hathaway quickly noticed the difference. This is the moon soul grass. This is the blood-sucking thorn. This is the ghost flower. The plants that Su Len did not recognize last time were easily recognized by Hathaway. She was very excited. There are so many magical plants here, Hathaway said excitedly. There was nothing strange about this forest before. I don't know what happened, but there was a sudden change recently, Su Len said as he walked. This place was not too far away from Northgard City. It was about 50 kilometers. In the past, nothing strange had happened here. It had only appeared in the past 1 or 2 months. Hathaway thought for a moment and said, I think it has something to do with the elemental tide. This place has something to do with the elemental tide? Sullen's eyes widened. Hathaway ran her fingers through her hair and said, yes, the elemental tide. The eruption of the elemental tide was a bit sudden. According to what you said, this mystery plane has not been repaired for at least 1 or 2,000 years. The sudden surge of elemental energy has caused problems with the operation of the energy nodes in the mystery plane. The energy core might have been damaged due to years of disrepair. The spatial array covering the secret realm also showed some flaws because of this. Then, the demonic plants, flower fields, and other plants that were originally in the secret realm were exposed. You should be able to feel it. The elemental energy in this forest is very dense. It's much denser than the other places outside. I suspect that the mystery plane was exposed because of the sudden increase in elemental energy due to the appearance of the elemental tide. The energy transmission system in the mystery plane could not withstand the sudden increase in elemental energy. Looks like we have the elemental tide to thank, Su Len said with a smile. Don't be happy too early. Although the mystery plane has appeared, it's not easy to go in and get the benefits. None of the ruins left behind by the ancient wizards are easy to deal with. The best equipment for exploring a mystery plane was to have a lucky companion. Under normal circumstances, it would be a halfling rogue. Halfling rogues were very popular in exploration because of their short stature, flexible bodies, keen intuition, and generally better luck than the average person. It would be even better if they had attributes similar to the treasure-hunting mouse. Soon, the two arrived at the sea of flowers that Su Len found last time. The purple sea of flowers swayed with the wind, looking like a purple ocean. So many purple tulips. Hathaway was very surprised when she saw the sea of flowers in front of her. These tulips give me the feeling that they are alive, Su Len said. Hathaway nodded and said, they are indeed alive. These are activated plants. These activated plants are generally the outer layer of the mystery plane, and the fruits they produce after they mature are also materials for refining magic potions. Also, don't you think this sea of flowers is very beautiful? It's like a fish eating 3 fish, Su Len said. Then how do we get in? There's no good way. We can only force our way in. And even if we know the password to pass through here, these magical plants have changed several times. It's a problem whether the password is still valid. After all this time, we still have to force it. Su Len rolled up his sleeves and was ready to do it. Don't do that. Seeing that Su Len was about to do it, Hathaway immediately pulled him back. I've already checked just now. The runic magic circle here has basically lost its effect. These tulips will only attack based on instinct. This way, it'll be much easier. If the original runic magic circle was still there, these tulips would be equivalent to 1. At that time, it would naturally be difficult to deal with. After Su Len and Hathaway cast a defensive spell, they entered the sea of flowers. As soon as they entered, Su Len smelled a strong floral fragrance, and a faint singing sound appeared in his ears. The tulips in the sea of flowers drifted with the wind, and the surrounding branches and leaves were like sharp blades that quickly cut the two of them. The energy shield in front of the two of them frequently collided with each other. The energy shield firmly blocked all these attacks, but the system's prompt kept ringing in his ears. The host is attacked by the knockout fragrance, forcibly conducting a constitution test. Constitution test passed. The host is attacked by the mind, forcibly conducting a spirit test. Spirit test passed. Chapter 238. Sullen's body was already tall, and with Hathaway's support, the attacks launched by the surrounding purple tulips didn't pose too much of a threat to the two. Sulen brandished his sword and kept cutting off the branches and leaves of the purple tulips. After being attacked, the attacks of the purple tulips weakened a lot. Hathaway took out a small pouch and grabbed some powder from it. She chanted some incantation and scattered the powder. The purple tulips that were still attacking the two suddenly slowed down. After a while, the attacks completely disappeared. The surrounding purple tulips were like drunkards, swaying and not moving. What is this? Sullen's eyes lit up. This is hypnotic powder. Alright, let's leave quickly. Plants have a high resistance to hypnosis. They will wake up soon, Hathaway urged. Sulen nodded, then pulled Hathaway and quickly walked towards the depths of the sea of flowers. Along the way, Hathaway kept sprinkling hypnotic powder on the surrounding purple tulips. Soon, the two passed through the sea of flowers. Behind the sea of flowers were some buildings that had been severely weathered. These buildings should have been heavily damaged. There were still some traces left on the ruins. Sulen found some wrinkles on the wall nearby. Sulen went over to take a look, but there was nothing special. It should be just an ordinary spatial wrinkle. After arriving here, the two didn't rush forward. Instead, they first searched the ruins. They didn't know if it was because the destruction was too thorough, but there was nothing valuable here. After finding nothing, the two began to enter the depths of the ruins. After arriving here, Sulen clearly felt that the space here was a bit strange. There was a strange membrane separating them from the outside world. After entering the secret realm, there were a lot more buildings inside, and many of them were relatively well preserved. Be careful. Although it seems that no one has been here for a long time, some runic magic circles are still operating normally. Don't touch their defense mechanism, Hathaway said after observing for a while. Sulen nodded gently, then asked, Hathaway, can you tell what period this secret realm is from? Looking at the style of these buildings, some of them seem to be from the later period of the Arcane Kingdom. However, the secret realms of the later period of the Arcane Kingdom are generally based on half-bit walls or artificial bit walls. Secret realms like this that fold space directly are rarely used. The difficulty of building a secret realm that uses this kind of space-folding technology is much lower, and the value inside will be much lower, so you have to be mentally prepared. But it's not without benefits. If the level of the ruins is low, the level of danger inside will naturally be low. Even if we find those secret realms made by semi-planes or even planes, we can only look at them. Secret realms of that level are very dangerous. Hathaway, do you know how to use the space-folding technology? How about we also build a secret realm in North Town? Sulen looked at the secret realm in front of him and said. The technology of creating a secret realm has been lost. Maybe some large wizard schools still have it. Our school doesn't have the information about the construction of a secret realm. Moreover, it costs an astronomical amount of money and resources to build a secret realm. Hathaway shook her head and said. Then see if you can try to control this secret realm. This secret realm doesn't look small, and the degree of damage isn't too high. It would be better if it can be repaired. I'll try. Hathaway looked at the secret realm. She was also very interested in it. Sulen looked around, then walked to a relatively intact building not far away. The materials used in these buildings looked very ordinary, but after so many years, they were still not completely damaged. It was obvious that the hardening spell had been cast on them. Sulen gently pushed the door open. A huge cloud of dust flew into the air. He quickly took a step back and summoned a wind elemental to sweep the dust away. The house was empty. Aside from a pile of decaying furniture, there was nothing else. There were no monsters or corpses inside, either. Just as Su Luan was about to turn around and leave, he suddenly seemed to have discovered something. He went directly to one of the walls, reached out, and gently knocked on it a few times. A hollow sound came from the wall. "There's something in there." Su Luan's eyes lit up. He immediately picked up the long sword and stabbed it into the wall. Then with a gentle stroke, the wall was pried open. There was a hole in the wall, and there was a small locked box in it. Sulen picked up the box and looked at it. He then signaled Hathaway to step back while he took out a wire to pry open the lock. Sulen had done this kind of job many times before. After all, he often went over walls to pry open locks. He talked about life with the noble ladies and young ladies and imparted his knowledge to them. His lock-picking skills had long been practiced to first class. Some of the old thieves were not as good as him. Not only was he good at picking locks, but he was also very good at picking the heart locks of the noble ladies and young ladies. He used to be the guardian knight of several young ladies. "It's locked." "Let me open it," Sulen said confidently. "Kacha. Kacha." After a while, Sulen fiddled with the wire back and forth in the lock cylinder, but the lock could not be opened. Sulen felt a thin layer of sweat on his head. What's going on? Are the locks of the Arcane Empire so powerful? Kacha. There was a soft sound. The lock on the box had been broken by Sulen. It turned out that this kind of thing had been stored for thousands of years, and the internal structure had long rusted away. Sulen inadvertently used too much force and broke the lock directly. After opening the box, Sulen did not open it immediately. This kind of box was generally set with a magic trap. Once it was opened, it would suddenly spray out effects such as strong acid, crossbow arrows, lightning, poisonous smoke, and so on. This kind of trap was impossible to guard against, so it was not wrong to be cautious. He put the box on the ground and carefully opened it. Sulen's body tensed up, and he was ready to dodge at any time without triggering any mechanism. Just as Sulen was about to relax, a flash of light came, followed by an acid arrow that was not as thick as a finger. Sulen's body flashed and he easily dodged it. The acid arrow flew less than 20 centimeters and fell to the ground weakly. A normal acid arrow was more than 10 times stronger than this one, and it could fly very far. However, considering that this trap had been there for so long, it could still be activated. This in itself showed that the person who set the trap was very skilled. After dodging the acid arrow, Sulen picked up the box. There was not much in the box, only a few colorful gems. There was a ruby and a sapphire that were the size of a pigeon's egg and of good quality. There was also a crystal bottle beside it, but the liquid in the bottle had long dried up, leaving only some brown powder at the bottom. "Here you go." Sulen handed the ruby and sapphire to Hathaway. Hathaway reached out and took the gems. Her beautiful big eyes were smiling like crescent moons. She took out a handkerchief and wiped the gems clean, then put them away with a smile. Sure enough, women were like dragons, unable to resist the temptation of these shiny gems. With the first building's facade already having such a harvest, the two's interest in treasure hunting was even higher. Following that, the dozen or so buildings that were still intact were all swept clean. Even the walls and floors were searched, but their harvest was not much. They only found a well-preserved magic scroll in one of the rooms. There were 5 hexagram symbols on the left side of this magic scroll, indicating that this magic scroll recorded a level 5 spell. A level 5 spell was still very valuable. If bought from a wizard, it would cost about 300 to 500 kinnar. He handed the magic scroll to Hathaway. Hathaway opened the scroll and looked at it, but after a few glances, Hathaway frowned. There were many runes on this level 5 spell that she had never seen before, and the runes on it were even more complicated than a level 6 spell. Although she did not recognize this magic scroll, it did not mean that she could not learn it. As long as she learned these new runes and released them, she would be able to master this spell. The only problem was that it would be more difficult to learn. After harvesting 2 gems and a level 5 spell scroll, Sulen and Selena left the ruins of the building and continued to go deeper into the secret realm. Soon, the two arrived near a farmland. At this time, the farmland had long been deserted, and only some plants grew sporadically in some places. After getting closer, Hathaway's eyes lit up. She immediately recognized that these were all magical plants. However, there was a layer of runic circle outside the farmland. Seeing this situation, Sulen and Hathaway directly used brute force to break it. Fortunately, the runic circle had not been maintained for a long time, and its power had dropped to the extreme. Hathaway hit it with a fireball, and the runic circle kept flickering. After a few consecutive fireballs, finally, with a soft sound, the runic circle flickered a few times and dimmed completely. Without the runic circle, Sulen and Selena entered the farmland. This farmland should have been used to grow all kinds of magical plants. Later, maybe because of war or other reasons, all the magical plants here were harvested. Those magical plants that were still growing now should be the seeds that accidentally fell during the harvest. These seeds later took root and grew in the farmland. The farmland in front of them covered a vast area of hundreds of acres. Some magical plants grew sporadically in it. Sulen and Hathaway did not continue to explore the ruins and left to harvest these magical plants. Although there were not many of these magical plants, their quality was very high. They had been growing for at least a few hundred years. Many of them were even almost extinct now. Chapter 239. Around these farms, Sulen also found some broken crystal pillars with many runes engraved on them. After careful identification, Hathaway found that the runes engraved on them were used for scouting, monitoring, and changing the surrounding environment. In the era of the Arcane Empire, the Arcanists could use spells to monitor the growth of the magic plants at all times, and change the surrounding growth environment according to the needs of the magic plants. Sulen even suspected that this work didn't need anyone to intervene. Under these crystal pillars, Sulen also found energy channels used to transmit magical energy. However, many of the channels were broken, and the energy inside was almost dry. Intruders detected. Intruders detected. Counterattack triggered. Eliminate the intruders. Body recharging. Insufficient energy. Activating reserve energy. Activating reserve energy. Activating counterattack. Mission instruction: eliminate the intruders. The cold mechanical voice suddenly sounded. A ray of light swept across a well-preserved crystal pillar next to them, followed by the sound of heavy footsteps. In the distance, a faint red light lit up in the gray fog, and some tall black shadows walked out of the fog. It was a few tall fully constructed puppets. These fully constructed puppets were different from the ones that were popular among the wizards. They were painted in black and had a metallic luster, giving them a heavy feeling. Steel golems? Seeing the fully constructed puppets in front of him, Sulen recognized them at a glance. The leading steel golem gave Sulen a feeling that it was very similar to the original version of Iron Man's armor in his previous life. One or two of the steel golems were damaged, which should be the traces of a battle. Target found. Attack. After finding Sulen and Hathaway, the leading steel golem instantly aimed its arm at the two of them. Then, its palms separated, and a black hole appeared in front of them. A burst of energy instantly burst out. Sulen's expression changed. Without thinking, he pulled Hathaway aside and dodged. Boom! Boom! A few consecutive energy blasts hit the place where the two of them were standing just now. A 4 or 5 meter deep crater was blasted out of the ground, and a mushroom cloud rose in the explosion. F***ck. So powerful. Su Len sucked in a breath of cold air when he saw the craters on the ground. Then, global warming. Every single one of these magic golems was more powerful than a great fireball, and if they fired continuously, they would be able to bombard the ground. This kind of magic golems could easily wipe out an entire army. Lightning spear. A spear made entirely of lightning appeared in Su Len's hand. In the next second, the lightning spear streaked across the sky and instantly hit the steel golem at the front. The powerful lightning energy melted the steel golem's chest into molten iron, and a large amount of lightning energy instantly burst out. The entire steel golem was covered in lightning. The steel golem's red eyes flickered back and forth a few times before slowly extinguishing. The steel golem that weighed several tons crashed to the ground. The other steel golems turned their arms and fired their energy cannons at the two of them. High-risk target detected. Prioritize high-risk target. The remaining steel golems all aimed at Su Len and fired energy cannons one after another. Seeing this situation, Hathaway's hands flickered and released spells one after another. Slow. Energy shield. Haste. Chain of fireballs. A flash of light enveloped the steel golems, and the already somewhat slow steel golems became even slower. A translucent energy shield rose from Su Len's body, and his already fast speed increased again. 5 fireballs appeared next to Hathaway. In the next second, these fireballs drew an arc and hit 3 steel golems. The flash of light dissipated, and to the two of them's surprise, the golems were actually unharmed, only a little damaged on the surface of their steel. What a high magic defense! Su Len slid, his figure flashed, and went around the golem from the side. Then, he took a big stride forward and slashed at the golem's leg joint with the sharp sword in his hand. Clang! The sound of metal clashing rang out. The steel golem's body shook slightly, and a deep sword mark appeared on its leg joint. Su Len's feet moved quickly, and he dodged the steel golem's sweep. In the next second, his body had already turned to the other side. At the same time, the sharp sword in his hand didn't stop at all, and he kept slashing at the steel golem's leg. Sparks flew, and soon, the steel golem's leg joint became scarred. Crack! With a soft sound, the already scarred joint could no longer withstand the attack and suddenly broke. The steel golem that had lost a leg could no longer maintain its balance, and its heavy body fell to the ground with a bang. Freezing beam. 3 Hathaway took advantage of the moment when Su Len was fighting with the golem and quickly summoned 3 icy blue rays. The blue rays instantly hit the 3 steel golems, and the steel golems, which had already been slowed down by the slow spell, became even slower. Su Len didn't let go of the opportunity. With a sweep of the sword in his hand, he cut off the leg joints of the 3 steel golems. After losing the ability to move, these steel golems all became targets. Soon, Su Len easily cut off their energy centers. After losing the energy centers, the red eyes of the steel golems flickered a few times and slowly extinguished. Su Len breathed a long sigh of relief and threw away the long sword in his hand that had turned into a sawtooth. Damn, these golems are really hard. Next time, I must change to a better weapon. Without a suitable weapon, this thing is like dismantling a mech with bare hands. Hathaway, can you make these golems? My current alchemy level is not enough, and these steel golems from the Arcane Empire are more difficult to make than the ones that are circulating now. I need to take them back and disassemble them. Hathaway shook her head with a wry smile. The craftsmanship of these golems was much more powerful than the steel golems in her school. Su Len got up and came near these steel golems. Then, he found the best preserved and lightest damaged steel golems and put them away with the storage parachute. As for the other golems, they could only be left here now. Although Sullen's storage space was large, it was very difficult to fit one in. The steel golems in front of him were basically identical in appearance. They were not the products of handmade workshops at all. Sulen suspected that these steel golems were like the products of an assembly line. The challenge rating of these steel golems was about level 13. Sulen could solve them so easily. Part of the reason was his own strength. The other part was that these golems lacked energy. Otherwise, these golems would have been attacking with energy balls. That kind of intensive energy cannon storm, even Sulen would have to temporarily avoid the spearhead. The two of them simply packed up their spoils of war and continued to walk deeper into the secret territory. After passing through the farmland, they soon saw a lake. The lake water was clear, but it was dead silent inside. After being sealed for such a long time, the ecology of the lake water had long been destroyed. After searching here for a while, Sulen only found a few lotus seeds in the soil. The lotus seeds were well preserved and should be able to germinate. Hathaway was going to go back and try to plant them. Bypassing the lake, a large number of buildings appeared in front of them. However, these buildings were seriously damaged. There were broken walls everywhere. Many of the buildings were directly erased, leaving only some large pits on the ground. Sulen picked up a piece of gravel and examined it. The gravel on the ground was all made of obsidian. The obsidian that was blessed with hard transformation was destroyed to this extent. It could be imagined how fierce the battle that took place here was. Although most of the buildings in the ruins were seriously damaged, the castle in the middle was still mostly preserved. After a simple search outside for a while, the two entered the castle. The castle was a mess. Several steel golems were scattered on the ground. These steel golems were seriously damaged. Many of them were rusted. Obviously, they had been scrapped. In addition to the steel golems, there was a large number of skeletons. However, after a long time, except for a few skeletons, most of the skeletons had become broken. In addition to human skeletons, there were many obviously thicker orc skeletons. There were also some skeletons that should be giants. Seeing the skeletons everywhere, Sulen could imagine how fierce the battle had been here. Bypassing these skeletons, Sulen walked into the castle. There were skeletons everywhere along the way. Sulen followed these skeletons. Sulen soon found the control center of this secret realm. In a well-preserved room in this castle, Sulen saw a place that looked like a control room. 6 thick metal pillars were engraved with a large number of runic magic circles. Next to this runic magic circle was a huge crystal curtain wall. However, this crystal curtain wall was now cracked into a spider web. Around this room, the battle was also the most intense. A large number of weapons were discarded on the ground. Sulen picked up a curved sword. The enchantment on the curved sword had lost its effect after thousands of years. Even the material had become rusty. Weapons of this level had lost their repair value. In the end, they could only be reforged. Most of the weapons here were in this state. Only a few high-level enchanted weapons still had some enchantment effect. However, if they wanted to continue using them, they had to find an alchemist master to repair them. Kacha. A noise came from the room, and an undead aura appeared. Skeletons swayed as they stood up. Sulen glanced at them, but didn't pay them any attention. In this secret land that had been closed for thousands of years, and with so many people dead and injured, it was normal for some undead to be born. However, because of the environment, it was very difficult to produce high-level undead. Some low-level ghosts and skeletons were easily dealt with. Chapter 240. Soon, Sulen and Hathaway had searched through the place. In the end, they found 6 enchanted weapons and 3 pieces of magical jewelry that could still be repaired. One of them was a ring, a bracelet, and a necklace. There was not a single space bag. After thousands of years, the enchantments on the space bags would lose their effectiveness. If they were lucky, the items inside would fall out. If they were unlucky, they would be destroyed when the space collapsed. The 3 pieces of magical jewelry were made of good materials. If not, the magical light on them would have dissipated long ago. However, the fact that they could be preserved for so long meant that they were of good quality. "Sulen, look what I found!" Hathaway shouted in surprise at this moment. Sulen quickly put away the items and looked over. He saw Hathaway waving at Sulen excitedly with a crystal ball in her hand. "What is this?" Sulen looked at Hathaway strangely. "The control center of the arcane realm. This is the control center of this arcane realm," Hathaway said loudly. Su Luan was overjoyed. He didn't bother to pick up the scraps anymore and ran over quickly. "This is the control center of the arcane realm?" Sulen asked as he took the crystal ball from Hathaway. This crystal ball was not much different from an ordinary crystal ball. However, there was some strange energy in it. "This is the control center made by the Arcanists. After it is activated, it can control the entire arcane realm. However, the energy here has been cut off for a long time. If we want to activate it, we need to reconnect the energy," Hathaway explained. "Where is the energy source of the arcane realm?" "The energy source of this arcane realm should be the elemental pool. Such an important facility should be placed in the safest place. If I'm not mistaken, it should be in this castle. We've already searched the upper floors and did not find the elemental pool. Then it must be in the basement." The 2 did not waste any more time and immediately started looking for the passage to the basement. After some effort, the 2 of them finally found a room that led to the basement in an inconspicuous room. Through a long passage, the 2 of them arrived at the basement of the castle. The basement didn't suffer too much damage, and the crystal magic lamp on the wall was still emitting a faint light. Some damaged golems were lying on the ground. In the middle of the basement, a pool with a diameter of 10 meters appeared in front of the 2. The pool was built with marble, and many complex runic circles were engraved on the marble. The pool was surrounded by energy channels made of magic crystals. These energy channels transmitted the energy in the pool to various parts of the secret realm. However, the energy in this elemental pool was close to drying up. The original marble wall was full of cracks, and several runes were damaged. Overall, this elemental pool was still 70% complete. Some elemental energy also leaked out from the energy pool. Although it was damaged, the elemental pool was still partially functional. It could draw energy from the 4 elemental planes, but the efficiency was very low. This was also why this secret realm could last for thousands of years. Now that the elemental pool's energy was about to run out, Sulen had to repair this elemental pool if he wanted to regain control of this arcane realm. "Hathaway, can this elemental pool be repaired?" Sulen frowned and asked. "I need to check it," Hathaway said with a serious expression. A complete elemental pool required at least a rank 4 wizard to build. Hathaway was only 1 step away from that. However, the elemental pool in front of them was still 70% complete, so it shouldn't be too difficult to repair it. The elemental pool was also the energy source of a wizard tower. Only a wizard tower with an elemental pool could be considered a true wizard tower. It used the connection between the 4 elemental planes, then drew elemental energy from the 4 elemental planes and gathered it into elemental water. Elemental water was the most peaceful state of elemental energy. It was also used in many alchemy experiments. Building a complete elemental pool required about 500,000 to 1 million kinnar. In addition to the basic marble, it also required 4 high-quality magic gems. 1 ruby, 1 sapphire, 1 emerald, and 1 topaz. These gems were used to connect the 4 elemental planes. If the quality of the gems wasn't high enough, they would explode when they passed through elemental energy. In addition to these, the elemental pool required a large amount of silver and gold, a small amount of mithril, and large high-quality magic crystals. Large pieces of high-quality magic crystals had very good magic conductivity, so there was very little loss in the process of conducting magic energy. At the same time, magic crystals were very abundant in the material world. Wizards had even grasped the technology to make artificial magic crystals. Because magic crystals had the highest cost-performance ratio, they were used in large amounts. The surface of the elemental pool required a large amount of silver coating. Silver, gold, arcane dust, arcane steel, and star iron were used to carve the rune circle. The rune circle in the elemental pool was a large-scale energy-gathering circle. In addition, there were 4 rune circles used to connect the 4 elemental planes. Hathaway didn't have that many materials in her hands. Fortunately, Sulan had a lot in his storage space. Some of the materials she didn't have had to be taken down from the scrapped steel puppets. Then she smelted them on the spot. Hathaway was very familiar with refining and fusing materials. She summoned a ball of spirit fire, then controlled the wizard's hand to melt all the metals. Finally, she smelted them together and obtained a ball of silver liquid with golden threads. Sulan repaired the damaged marble while Hessie didn't smelt the materials. Then Hathaway began to control the wizard's hand and used a carving knife to repair the damaged runes on the elemental pool. Strands of silver wire were extracted from the molten metal and then carefully engraved on the marble wall. The runic array of the elemental pool required a very high degree of precision. According to the saying in his previous life, it was accurate to the micrometer. This level of intelligence relied on mental strength to carry out the operation. Hathaway's movements were very slow. She didn't dare to be careless. Sulan had been holding his breath for a long time. There were more than 300 runes on the elemental pool. There were more than 90 runes that needed to be repaired. All the runes needed to be engraved to the micrometer. Hathaway repaired the runes one by one, and the molten metal continued to fill them up. After a few hours, the sky was already dark, and Hathaway finally repaired the last rune. As the runic circle was repaired, a light flashed, and the elemental pool that was still leaking no longer leaked out. In addition to these, the original 4 magic gems used to connect the 4 elemental planes also needed to be replaced. After thousands of years of operation, these gems had not been maintained. The connecting channel had become very unstable. There was a possibility that it could be interrupted at any time. Hathaway took out 4 red, yellow, blue, and green gems of the same size and quality from her storage bag. She began to carve them with a carving knife. These gems needed to be engraved with symbols that represented the 4 elements. Compared to the elemental pool, the carving of these gems was much simpler. Soon, the 4 magic gems were carved into the shape of a rhombus. Each of the gems was engraved with a rune. Hathaway carefully replaced the original 4 magic gems in the elemental pool. The 4 new magic gems were successfully integrated into the 4 directions of the elemental pool. Buzz! There was a soft sound, and the whole space seemed to vibrate slightly. Then, 4 large amounts of energy appeared in the basement. Traces of strange energy flowed into the elemental pool. The elemental energy gathered in the elemental pool and formed a light blue elemental water. Soon, a thin layer of spring water appeared in the elemental pool that had almost reached the bottom. With the appearance of the elemental water, the concentration of elemental energy in the basement became very high. The establishment of an elemental pool was not only an important source of energy for the secret plane or the wizard tower, but also a great change to the surrounding environment. The most obvious change was the increase in concentration of elemental energy. The elemental pool could transform the area into an area where elemental energy was active. In this area, the casting speed and mana recovery speed of wizards would be increased. At the same time, the effect of meditation would also be increased. This was very important for wizards. At the same time, a rich elemental energy could also be used to grow all kinds of magical plants. The rich elemental energy here was more suitable for their growth. According to the classification of wizards, the concentration of elemental energy was divided into several levels. The place with the highest concentration of elemental energy was called the elemental land. In this place, the elemental energy was close to liquefaction. Living in this place for a long time would slowly change the body of the person who lived in this place. In the end, it would even evolve some spell-like abilities. The second level was the elemental land. Most of these places were modified by wizards. Basically, an elemental pool could be modified into a whole area. After that, the third level was the elemental land. Most of these places were naturally formed and rich in elemental energy. Usually, many magical plants and magical beasts would grow in these places. The fourth level was the normal concentration of elemental energy. Most material planes were in this state. The fifth level was the elemental land. This kind of environment was not very common in the main material plane. The recovery speed of wizards would be reduced if they meditated here. The seventh level was called the dead magic land. In this kind of area, elemental energy was extremely scarce. It would be very difficult for wizards to cast spells. The difficulty of casting spells would directly increase by 1 circle, and the recovery speed would also be very slow. Most of these areas were caused by serious damage to the material plane or serious experimental accidents. The most famous place was the Desert of Despair. There were also some areas called the Forbidden Magic Land. These places were almost completely devoid of elemental energy. The difficulty of casting spells would be increased by at least 2 circles. Generally, when low-level wizards came here, they would directly lose their ability to cast spells. Chapter 241. The elemental pool has been successfully repaired. Your hero Hathaway has gained 42,000 experience points. Hathaway has leveled up. I've found the opportunity to break through, Hathaway said in surprise. Sulen looked around and said, you can break through here. The elemental pool is full of elemental energy. I'll guard outside for you. Don't worry about your safety. Hathaway hesitated for a moment and nodded. She would not let go of the opportunity to break through. Okay. Since she had decided to break through here, Hathaway did not hesitate and directly entered the elemental pool. Under normal circumstances, wizards would choose to break through in an area full of elemental energy. This kind of environment was very beneficial for them, especially for high-grade wizards. They would absorb a large amount of elemental energy when they were breaking through. If there was a lack of elemental energy, it would affect the wizard's ability. To put it bluntly, it was the increase of the power of the will and mana. Some powerful high-grade wizards would even trigger an energy vortex when they were breaking through. Therefore, wizards who had the right conditions would usually choose to break through in an area full of elemental energy. Some pragmatic organizations would even use the energy of the elemental pool. However, compared to Hathaway's current conditions, these were nothing. Although the elemental pool was not full yet, it was enough for Hathaway to break through. After the elemental pool was repaired, the elemental energy began to slowly gather. According to the energy level set by wizards, the elemental pool in front of them was a medium-sized one. It could store up to 200,000 to 300,000 points of energy. It could transform the entire secret plane into a place full of elemental energy. It could support the normal operation of the secret plane. At the same time, it could also support the daily training of 50 wizards, 50 steel golems, and 120 stone golems. Hathaway began to meditate in the elemental pool. Soon, the surrounding elemental energy began to gather around her and formed an elemental vortex. A large amount of elemental energy entered Hathaway's body. Hathaway's breakthrough did not have any setbacks. She had already accumulated a lot of elemental energy, and with the abundant elemental energy provided by the elemental pool, everything went smoothly. When the elemental vortex disappeared, Hathaway's breakthrough also ended. Soon, Hathaway walked out of the elemental pool in high spirits. After completing the advancement, North Garrison City now had 3 4th-level spellcasters. In terms of high-level spellcasters, even Cult City had more than North Garrison City. Although he was happy that Hathaway had successfully advanced, he still had more important things to do. Sulan had to reactivate the control center of the sorcerer's secret plane and take control of it. This was the only way to control the sorcerer's secret plane. At the same time, he had to repair the secret plane as soon as possible. After becoming a Grand Wizard, Hathaway's power had greatly increased. Moreover, because she had repaired the elemental pool before, she had a deeper understanding of this place. There were several energy channels outside the elemental pool, and these energy channels were made of pure natural magic crystals. After checking for a while, Hathaway found the energy channel leading to the main control room. However, the energy channel connecting to the main control room had been destroyed. If she wanted to use it, she needed to repair it first. Sulan didn't have any magic crystals with him at the moment. Fortunately, there were many of them in this secret plane. Sulan and Hathaway directly removed a section of the damaged energy channel. Then, they used soul fire to melt and mold the channel. Finally, they engraved runes on it, and a section of the energy channel was completed. After replacing the newly created energy channel and checking that there were no problems, Hathaway opened the energy channel to the elemental pool. Light blue elemental energy directly entered the energy channel. The originally dim energy channel quickly emitted a faint blue light. The energy channel connecting to the main control room quickly lit up. Soon, the entire channel was filled with elemental energy. Sulan and Hathaway confirmed that the energy channel was not leaking and that it was working well. Only then did they return to the main control room. At this time, the energy channel connecting to the central console in the main control room also lit up. The console surrounded by 6 metal pillars also entered a state of activation. However, it couldn't be activated because it didn't have a control center. Sulan and Hathaway looked at each other. Then, Hathaway picked up the control center in the shape of a crystal ball and came to the console. She gently snapped her fingers and a light flashed. The originally complete console was instantly divided into several pieces. After a dazzling combination, a silver-white circular metal platform slowly rose up. Hathaway gently placed the crystal ball on the metal platform. Hum! With a soft sound, the entire console instantly emitted a faint blue light. The light lasted for about a few seconds and quickly disappeared. Then, the crystal ball on the console began to slowly light up. Control center beginning to charge. Current progress, 20%, 30%. 80%, 90%, 100% charging complete. Beginning system self-check. System self-check complete. Control center beginning to activate. Activating. Please wait. Hum hum hum. With a low buzzing sound, the control center began to activate. The original crystal ball emitted a dazzling light. The entire control room was shrouded in a blue light. Activation successful. Control center detected damaged. System repair is in progress. Beep beep beep. The damage is too great. Repair failed. Starting backup program. System resetting. Please wait. System resetting successful. Honorable Arcanist, Northern Dawn Outpost Secret Realm, Tower Spirit number 1 at your service. Please set the level of authority. Hathaway set Sulan and her to the highest level of authority. Tower Spirit number 1, check the environment of the secret realm and display the current state of the secret realm. After setting the level of authority, Sulan directly ordered. Mission accepted. Executing. Please wait. As the mission proceeded, a wave of energy spread from the console and quickly spread throughout the entire secret realm. Su Len looked at the tower spirit with some surprise. The appearance of this thing almost destroyed Sullen's worldview. In Sullen's view, this tower spirit was completely a high-end artificial intelligence. It was much more powerful than the artificial intelligence in his previous life. After asking Hathaway, Su Len finally had a preliminary understanding of the high-level construct life tower spirits. Tower spirits were artificial life created by arcanists to help them control wizard towers and floating cities. Yes, life. There were many types of tower spirits. The most common type was the support type. Although they were at the legendary level, they basically had no combat ability. They had a huge amount of computing power and could perform all kinds of data analysis. They were not only used to manage wizard towers, assist in experiments, collect data for analysis, optimize and improve templates, and support in combat. Battle tower spirits focused on combat. They may have their own exclusive golems or could control a large number of weapons to fight. However, this did not mean that the battle tower spirit was the highest level. On the contrary, the support type was the highest level. A tower spirit that could control a floating city was at least at the advanced legendary level. It could even be at the demigod level. Managing a large city, especially a floating city, was difficult. The computing power required was definitely at the astronomical level. Ordinary tower spirits would not be able to support it. The tower spirit in this secret realm was a support-type tower spirit. Its level was also at the legendary level. In other words, to make a legendary tower spirit like this, at least a legendary soul shard and then a grandmaster alchemist would be required to make it successfully. Most of the tower spirits in the wizard tower were auxiliary tower spirits. They could replace the wizard to control the wizard tower when the wizard tower was out. They could also distinguish between friend and foe, and when the enemy attacked, they would directly activate the battle mode. If a wizard tower without a tower spirit had a challenge level of 13 to 15, then a wizard tower with a tower spirit would have a challenge level of 21 legendary. After giving out the mission, Tower Spirit number 1 began to perform a large number of calculations. A large number of data flashed on the crystal display beside it, but the display was full of cracks and could not be seen at all. Beep. Scan complete. The current level of completeness of the secret realm is 76%. The area is 10 square kilometers. Number of puppet golems, 0. Storage of supplies, 0. The level of completeness of the energy channel is 48%. The level of completeness of the space folding formation is 16%. The level of completeness of various facilities is 36%. At the same time, a three-dimensional model of the secret realm they were in appeared in front of them. Su Len pointed with his finger and the model was enlarged instantly. Soon, Su Len found the area they had entered before. The three-dimensional model had all the areas in the secret realm marked. Tower Spirit number 1, create a repair plan. Creating a repair plan. A series of data was announced by Tower Spirit number 1. If the secret realm ruins in front of them were to be used again, they would have to undergo a large-scale repair. Looking at the receipt given by the Tower Spirit, Su Len felt his blood pressure rise. According to the materials on the receipt, it would take at least millions of kinnar to repair this secret realm. Suggest repairing the space folding circle first. After the repair is done, the secret realm will be hidden again. Organize the materials and plan needed to repair the space rune circle. Then, the three-dimensional model in the secret realm was divided into dozens of small areas. At the same time, the energy nodes of the ley lines in the secret realm were marked one by one. A rune circle appeared in front of them. There were still many incomplete parts on this rune circle. The green parts on the rune circle were normal, the red parts were damaged and needed to be rebuilt, and the yellow parts were damaged and needed to be repaired. Everything was displayed in an orderly manner. P.S. There are 2 more updates. They may be late. Chapter 242. After checking the area that needed to be repaired, it was the area where Sulan and Kate came in. Sulan then checked the map of the entire mysterious realm. Sulan could clearly see all the areas in the mysterious realm through the 3D map. Other than the plantation area, there were also the living area, the warehouse area, the production area, the entertainment area, and the central area. The central area was where Sulan and Hathaway were now. It used to be inhabited by arcanists, and the environment was the best. However, after the war, it was the most damaged area in the entire mysterious realm. Not many buildings were still intact. The warehouse area and the production area were also badly damaged. According to the original plan of the mysterious realm, there should be an alchemy workshop in the production area that could produce many magic items, potions, and so on. There was even a production line for golems here. However, the production area was now in ruins. The production line should have been destroyed a long time ago. As for the warehouse area, which stored a large number of materials and produced items, it was also in a mess. As for the things here, if they were not used up, then they were directly snatched away. Basically, there was nothing left. The entertainment area was not badly damaged, but there was basically nothing valuable here. The arena, the opera house, the health center, and so on were basically worthless. There was also a library here, but unfortunately, it was also destroyed. Although Sulan had gained control of the mysterious realm, it was still in ruins. If he wanted to use it, he would have to repair it bit by bit. The amount of work required to repair the mysterious realm was huge, but there were also many benefits after the repair. The most obvious one was that he could grow a lot of magical plants here. However, the most important thing now was to hide the mysterious realm again. Sulan left the mysterious realm with Hathaway. When they returned to the Thorn Forest, the camp had been completed. According to Sullen's instructions, the soldiers of Northtown City had sealed off the forest. The goblins, kobolds, and gnolls around the area had all been driven away. "Master, you're back," Kate said respectfully. "Did anyone come close to the forest while I was away?" Sulan asked. "Sir, I haven't noticed anyone approaching this place during this period of time." Sulan nodded and praised, "Well done. Continue to seal this place." After a simple meal, Sulan brought Hathaway back to Northern Citadel. Repairing the mysterious realm required a lot of materials, including silver, gold, copper, iron, magic crystals, mithril, magic gemstones, and so on. Luckily, Northern Citadel was already prosperous enough. It had all kinds of resources. Silver, gold, and other precious metals could be taken out from the castle's warehouse. He had looted the Grey Dwarf's collection for a few hundred years, so he had plenty of them. It was the same for the magic gems. As for the copper and iron, some would be transported from blacksmiths and some would be purchased directly. The magic crystals were a bit more troublesome since there were no crystal mines in the Sulan territory. There were crystal mines in the underground world, but they were scattered and needed people to mine them. He didn't have a lot of mithril, but the silver mine that the Grey Dwarf Bach was mining did produce mithril. Although it wasn't much, it was more than enough to repair the mysterious realm. After spending 3 days preparing all the materials needed to repair the mysterious realm, Sulan left the matters of Northern Citadel to Chris. He then brought Hathaway to the Northern Citadel again. There were all kinds of mutated plants in the Thorn Forest. Although the man-eating flowers and trees were dangerous, they also ensured the safety of the mysterious realm. Sulan and Hathaway had already experienced this before, so they easily avoided the man-eating plants. They then used the hypnosis powder to pass through the sea of purple tulips and return to the mysterious realm. "Welcome back, Mr. Sulan and Ms. Hathaway." Tower Spirit Number 1's voice rang out. "Tower Spirit Number 1, did anyone else enter the mysterious realm when we left?" Sulan asked. "No." "That's good. Show me the blueprint." "As you wish." As Tower Spirit Number 1's voice rang out, a 3D image appeared in front of the two along with the blueprint. Hathaway cast a photographic image spell and stored the information in a magic crystal. Then the two began to repair the mysterious realm according to the blueprint. The first thing to be repaired was the ley line nodes. When the mysterious realm was first built, rune pillars were placed on all the ley line nodes to connect and organize the ley line energy. These rune pillars were the foundation of the mysterious realm's space-folding spell. This was the direct reason why the mysterious realm was damaged. According to the red dots on the 3D map, Su Len and Hathaway quickly found a ley line energy node. These locations were originally classified as the mysterious realm's secrets, but they were easily found with the blueprint. Hathaway used her power of the will to search and soon found something strange. She then used her mana to search for the rune pillars. Found it. It's 30 meters underground. Hathaway soon opened her eyes. Get up and let me do it. Su Len took out a small flag from his storage space. Then he waved it gently and directly summoned two wind elementals. Stone to mud. With a flash of light, the originally hard ground turned into mud. Then the two wind elementals entered the mud under Sullen's command. A large amount of mud was pulled out by the wind elementals. After the mud was extracted, Su Len cast stone to mud again and let the two wind elementals work. Soon, after repeating a few times, a deep hole was easily dug out. Then they took out the rune pillars buried inside. This step was a bit difficult because the rune pillars were connected to the ley line energy. They had to cut off the connection between the rune pillars and the ground. Originally, there was a rune formation at the ley line energy node to suppress the ley line, but this rune formation had been damaged long ago. Hathaway could only make a rune formation herself. Fortunately, this kind of rune formation was not difficult for Hathaway. After setting up the rune formation, Su Len moved the rune pillars. The ley line energy began to vibrate. Hathaway activated the rune formation. A yellow light flashed, and then the ley line energy calmed down. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Su Len immediately took out the rune pillars from the ground. This was a rune pillar about 3 meters long and 20 centimeters in diameter. There were many runes engraved on it, but because of the long time and lack of maintenance, many of the runes on this rune pillar had been blurred. It was the failure of these runes that caused the ley line energy node to lose its original function. After taking out the rune pillars, Hathaway cleaned up the rune pillars and then smelted them again. The rune pillars were made of an alloy called thorium. Thorium was a synthetic metal invented during the Arcane Empire. This metal had high plasticity, good magic conductivity, and stable properties. It was used in many places. The main metal of this alloy was silver. At first, it was to develop a metal that could replace mithril. However, the effect was far from what was expected, but it was still a good magic metal. Hathaway summoned psionic fire, then melted the rune pillars again and added some other materials. Thorium was a magic alloy that had been around for thousands of years. After inheriting part of the Arcanist's knowledge, although the wizards did not restore the original glorious civilization of the Arcanists, they also made breakthroughs in some fields. Thorium was one of them. After the rune pillars were melted, Hathaway operated the wizard's hand to shape the rune pillars. Su Len also summoned the wizard's hand to help. Finally, he released a frost beam to cool down the rune pillars. After the rune pillars were refined, the runes needed to be engraved again. The runes that needed to be engraved on the thorium pillars were backed up by the Tower Spirit Number 1. The Tower Spirit Number 1 had a lot of knowledge from the Arcane Empire in its database, which was basically about the secret realm. It was not an exaggeration to say that as long as one learned all the knowledge, one could build a new secret realm like this. When the Arcane Empire built the secret realm, they kept a backup of the secret realm's production technology and blueprints. These were originally reserved for the restoration of the secret realm. Now, all of them were taken advantage of by Su Len. Hathaway took out several items such as gem powder, gold, silver, grind water, and so on to fuse them. After the materials were fused, she took out a fine gold carving knife and began to engrave the runes on the thorium pillars. The fine gold carving knife was very sharp. Under the operation of the wizard's hand, it began to work quickly. Hathaway had memorized the runes that needed to be engraved on the thorium pillars very clearly. Once she started, it was done smoothly. Soon, the new runes were engraved, and a rune pillar was completed. After a series of tests to meet the requirements, Su Len and Hathaway once again put the rune pillars back to their original place, and then restored the ground to its original state. There was a flash of light, and the space magic circle, which had been somewhat scattered, began to stabilize. After seeing the effect of the repair, the two went to the next damaged earth vein node according to the repair drawings given by the tower spirit. There were more than 100 such earth vein nodes in the entire secret realm. This time, more than 20 of them were damaged. It would take a lot of effort to repair all of them. However, even if these earth vein nodes were all repaired, the space-folding rune array of the secret realm was still not completed. If the secret realm was regarded as a net, the earth vein nodes were the nodes of the net, and the energy channels were the network cables of the fishing net. Only when the fishing net was in a complete state could the entire secret realm be hidden in the space-folding rune array. Chapter 243. The amount of work needed to repair the secret plane was very large, so the two of them had been busy for a while. However, this wasn't without benefits. For example, Sullen's wizard rank had increased. After repairing a large number of rune pillars, Su Luan's wizard knowledge and experience had increased. Although he would no longer be rewarded with attribute points when he leveled up, the number of spells he could cast had increased, and he had also learned some wizard abilities. After spending around a week, the two of them had finally finished repairing all the rune pillars. Next, they needed to repair the energy channel here. Compared to the rune pillars, the energy channel was much simpler. During this time, the Grey Dwarves had also dug out large amounts of magic crystals from the underground world. Actually, magic crystals could be artificially synthesized, but Hathaway didn't have time to make them. Although the crystal veins in the underground world were scattered, there were still plenty of magic crystals. Building the energy channel didn't require high-quality magic crystals. The magic crystals from the underground world had already been sorted out. The high-quality magic crystals were placed separately, while the normal magic crystals were put into special alchemy furnaces to be melted and shaped. The energy channel made by these magic crystals needed to be engraved with runes and then buried back into the energy channel. The secret plane lacked maintenance before, so there were many damaged energy channels. Although the energy channels were damaged more than the rune pillars, the repair speed was much faster than the rune pillars. After repairing all the damaged energy channels, Su Len went to the elemental pool again. He opened the link to the elemental pool and the blue elemental water began to flow through the energy channel into the secret plane. After the energy channel was repaired, even the original plantation had its energy supply restored. The entire secret plane's energy network was connected. As the elemental pool's energy entered the rune pillars began to flicker with magic light, and the space around them began to wrinkle. If one stood in the air and observed, they would find that the sea of flowers in the forest had suddenly become distorted. Space began to distort and fold before finally disappearing. The large amount of purple tulips in the thorn forest seemed to have never appeared before and disappeared without a trace. As for the sunwell flowers, caraman's trees, blood brambles and other mutant plants, a portion of them were still within the boundary of the secret realm and were kept in the thorn forest. Su Len didn't try to catch the mutated plants that had escaped to the outside world. These mutated plants could also grow in the outside world, and although a completely wild environment would prolong their maturation time, the magical materials harvested were slightly better than those cultivated by humans. After the space-folding array in the secret realm was repaired, Su Len heard the sound of the system notification. Congratulations, host. You have completed the restoration of the secret realm. Your control over the secret realm has increased by 30%. Congratulations, host. You have participated in the restoration of the arcane realm and gained a lot of experience in magical technology. Congratulations, host. You have repaired the mystic realm. You are rewarded with 1 golden treasure chest. Secret realm, unnamed. A damaged secret realm passed down from the era of the Arcane Empire. After the elemental energy shock caused by the elemental tide, it was restored after some repairs. Concealment plus 10, elemental abundance plus 17, indestructible plus 15, energy circulation plus 18, secret realm output plus 18, space barrier. After seeing that the secret realm was recognized by the system, Su Len was also very happy. However, although he had gained control of the secret realm, many facilities in the secret realm had been damaged and needed to be repaired bit by bit. Similarly, the magical plants in the planting area also needed to be planted. Su Len opened the storage space and then opened the golden treasure chest. A flash of light, Su Len heard the sound of the system notification again. Congratulations, host. You have opened the golden treasure chest and obtained the skill teleportation array. Teleportation array. This skill is the product of the integration of the teleportation array skill after the system integrated the rules of the world. It can transfer any creature or item to a designated location. It can transfer up to 50 people at a time, and this skill can be made into a permanent array. After seeing this skill, Su Len's eyes widened. The effect of the teleportation array in the previous game was average, but after integrating the rules of this world, it directly became a teleportation array. This world also had teleportation arrays and teleportation spells, but group teleportation spells like this were generally the technology of large wizard organizations. Ordinary wizards only had teleportation spells, and at most, they could bring a few people. This kind of group teleportation array was completely a strategic spell. It was very convenient to teleport to the enemy's rear or the front line. Of course, the premise was that the other party did not build a space isolation runic array on their territory. The teleportation array came at just the right time. Although the secret realm was completed, this secret realm was a little far from North City. It was more than 50 kilometers away, and it was a little inconvenient to travel between the two places. Now that there was a teleportation array, it was possible to build a teleportation array in the secret realm, and then build another one in North City. In this way, North City and the secret realm would be completely connected. Other than the secret realm and North City, the underworlds Orlando City and North City could also be connected by a runic array. There was also the Harpy's Eagle Nest. With the teleportation array, Su Len did not have to worry about the problem of expanding his territory. At the same time, he did not have to recruit a large number of soldiers in all the cities. As long as North City had enough soldiers, they could directly send reinforcements to other places if they were in danger. They could even launch airborne attacks. However, all of this was based on the teleportation array. Su Len chose to learn the teleportation array right away, but the awkward thing was that he did not have any skill points. Without skill points, he could not learn the skill quickly. However, that did not mean he could not learn it. Su Len could also choose to learn the skill through the skill scroll. The advantage was that he did not need skill points to learn the skill, but the disadvantage was that it would take a long time to learn. Of course, there was another way. The system sold a type of Styx's water in the shop. After using it, he could choose to forget one of his skills. After forgetting the skill, Su Len would regain the skill points that he had used to learn the skill. Su Len spent 50,000 kinar to buy a bottle of Styx's water. He took it out from his storage space. It was a kind of purple, half-transparent liquid. It was stored in a crystal bottle the size of a palm. The liquid shimmered as it swayed. It was said that the potion was created by refining the water from the Styx's river with a few other ingredients. After hesitating for a moment, Su Len twisted the cap open and drank the Styx's water. After drinking it, Su Len smacked his lips as if he had not had enough. It was sweet and orange, and it tasted pretty good. Please choose a skill that you would like to forget. All of Su Len's skills were displayed in front of him for him to choose. I choose to forget Scarlet Flame. Su Len, who had already made up his mind, chose the skill right away. Scarlet Flame was not that useful to him at the moment. To put it bluntly, it was just a skill that could create a large area of fire. However, a fireball skill could be used to set a fire, so it was much more effective than Scarlet Flame. After Su Len learned the fireball skill, Scarlet Flame could be retired. After choosing the skill, the Scarlet Flame skill on Su Len's system panel gradually disappeared. At the same time, the knowledge about the Scarlet Flame skill also disappeared from his mind. At the same time, Su Len gained one more skill point after the Scarlet Flame skill disappeared. After learning some teleportation, the skill point disappeared. Su Len gained a lot of knowledge about teleportation. After learning teleportation, Su Len started to check the things needed to build a teleportation circle. A teleportation circle needed a fixed rune circle and a lot of precious spatial materials. A teleportation circle would cost at least 1 million kinnar. Even Su Len was speechless at such a high price. However, it was worth it. With the help of the rune circle, North Town's control over the other cities would increase exponentially. Other than needing a lot of materials, a teleportation circle would also consume a lot of energy when it was used. Of course, this was not a problem in the secret plane. They could just build an energy channel from the elemental pool. The same was true for the teleportation circle in North Town. Hathaway was already a rank 4 wizard, so she was qualified to build a wizard tower. With the experience of repairing the elemental pool in the secret plane, Hathaway had already learned how to build an elemental pool. Su Len also planned to build a wizard tower for Hathaway. He also planned to move Hathaway's old lab into the wizard tower. With the abundant energy from the elemental pool, he could build a teleportation circle here. Other than using the energy from the elemental pool, there were other ways to activate the teleportation circle. For example, using a few wizards to provide energy or using an energy crystal as a substitute. However, this method was not very cost-effective. An energy crystal was not cheap. Each teleportation would cost at least 1 energy crystal. If there were a lot of people or a long distance, the cost would be even higher. Building a teleportation circle required a lot of materials. Some of them were very precious and hard to find, so Su Len could only buy some from the system. The most valuable one was the Void Break Stone, which cost 100,000 kinnar each. After spending a lot of kinnar to buy the materials, Su Len began to build the teleportation circle. With the help of Hathaway, the construction of the teleportation circle was very fast. In just a few hours, a teleportation circle was finally built. An energy channel was built from the elemental pool to the teleportation circle. Su Len chose to start it right away. After giving the teleportation permission, Su Len brought Hathaway to the teleportation platform. These coordinates were left by Hathaway in the lab. With a flash of light, the two disappeared from the secret plane. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.